Hey everyone, this is a compilation of episode 1 and 2 of the series I'm calling the Captain NCU. A very silly idea where I'm making a Captain N cinematic universe. It's not real. These are not real movies, these are fictional pitches. If you're wanting to get into the series, this is the best place to start because it's where this whole thing begins with phase 1. Phase 2 is coming up soon, so you better be caught up with all the lore. Here's the Captain NCU. In the history of video game adaptations, Captain N might just be the weirdest. For years, it was arguably the most extensive video game crossover. It had a ridiculous amount of license holders from all across the NES library involved. Everything about Captain N is so early 90s, and there's basically no other time something like Captain N could have been made. Especially because the trend with crossovers now is to make cinematic universes, with broader connections between multiple different IPs that you can't really get with Captain N. I think a Captain N cinematic universe would be a terrible idea for multiple reasons. There's expectations on how a Castlevania movie would have to function, and it's pretty incompatible with how a Mega Man movie would have to function. But you know what? Wouldn't it be fun if I planned one anyways? This video will be my pitch/loose idea for a Captain N cinematic universe, which from now on I will be referring to as the Captain NCU. This is a horrible idea that I am doing anyways, because it seems like a genuinely interesting challenge. I will be coming up with basic concepts for the first 3 movies, and if this video is a success, I'll finish the rest of phase 1 in a sequel. However, there is a catch. I don't think it would be fun to adapt this series as we know it now. There's too much baggage associated with each series and their license holders, and many of them have adaptations anyways. For my pitch, I'll be imagining that every series to ever get a release on the NES just didn't progress past 1991 when the original Captain N series ended. This is, admittedly, really weird. In this weird scenario, these are all still recognizable IPs, some of which got multiple games, but they all just mysteriously stopped around 1991. But I think it makes for more interesting pitches. In the 80s, video game stories were much more up to players' interpretations, and are easier to mold into a cinematic universe format. I still want to stay true to each game, and the strength of a cinematic universe is that you can play with different genres and tones with a through line that connects disparate movies and their characters. Keep in mind that you will probably hate the changes I make to each series. Many of the series represented in Captain N have cemented their looks and feel since 1991, but the material I'm pulling from is a different era where video game storylines were looser, and a lot of iconic elements might not have been introduced yet. I am going to be doing some 1993 Mario movie shit, and this is your warning. Maybe not as big of a change as that movie, but it still might be weird. I'm going to try to ask you to suspend your disbelief because this is a weird premise and will result in even weirder movies. If you enjoyed, please subscribe and bear with me for a minute as I set some rules. I'll get to my movie lineup shortly. I am only going to be adapting material in games originating from before 1991 that released on the NES. I can adapt or take elements from any publisher as long as it's not a licensed game and that it released on NES before that time. Even NES games that weren't in Captain N are fair game. I can also take some light inspiration from the various cartoon adaptations, including the Captain N show, but I won't be adapting them directly. I'm not including Japan exclusive games that came out on Famicom. If I cover phase 2 eventually, I figure I can loosen some of these rules, maybe include some Game Boy content too, but for now, this is what I'm doing. So here's my Comic-Con panel movie lineup reveal. I'm only doing the first 3 movies today, but I'll give the rest of the phase just to give some context. Super Mario Bros., Castlevania, Mega Man, Kid Icarus, The Legend of Zelda, and Captain N, The Final Fantasy. The Captain N show had Simon Belmont from Castlevania, Pit from Kid Icarus, and Mega Man as their protagonists, so they'll be set up in their own movies. The other protagonists, Captain N and Lana, will be introduced before the big crossover too. You've probably noticed that I titled the last movie after Final Fantasy. I will not be saying any more besides that at this point. Mario and Zelda get their own movies because they're both pretty connected to Captain N. Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World both aired at the same time as Captain N. Granted, I'm not allowed to use Super Mario World content, but whatever. I won't be going over the casts or directors for each movie because frankly, I don't know enough actors, and I would just embarrass myself naming a bunch of people who are in superhero movies. I would love to hear casting ideas though. If there's any more information on the Captain N CEU, I'll get to it when it becomes relevant. Let's talk about my first movie pitch, Super Mario Bros. Brooklyn, modern day. We are introduced to Kevin Mario, a high schooler playing basketball outside his school with a few friends. He checks his watch, then realizes how late it is. Shit, sorry, I gotta go, I can't miss dinner again tonight. He rushes home through the busy streets and enters a small house. His parents and uncle are all seated at a table eating lasagna. Mario, Luigi, and Pauline. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. So Kevin is eventually going to become Captain N, and here I have decided to make him the son of Mario. When you think about it, Mario would be seen as outdated if he came out today. He's an Italian plumber stereotype, which is weird for the face of a billion-dollar brand, and he's often conceptualized as being from New York. Are fat working-class Italians really still what the current generation thinks of when they imagine New York City? So this movie will carry a theme of generations being at odds with one another. Mario is stubborn, traditional, and sticks closely to his culture. We could say him and Luigi are Italian immigrants. Basically, they match the stereotypes of Italians in New York City circa 1985. Kevin would be more adjusted to the times. He represents modern conceptions of the average Gen Z New Yorker and would rather spend his time with friends than help his dad and uncle out with their silly plumbing. There's a dinner scene where we get the basics of each character. Ultimately, they all love each other, but Mario and Kevin don't see eye to eye right now. This is also where I admit that obviously these plans I'm making are very loose. I'm not making these into full scripts or anything, and if I was, I'd probably change a lot of the details. In the creation of a movie, you could call this the, okay, here's what I'm thinking phase. Kevin goes to his room and we see a shot outside, in the Brooklyn streets, as a crab's claw slowly reaches out through a manhole. The central plot of the movie would be the Mario Bros working to stop an invasion of New York by an army of enemies from the games. Goombas, Koopas, Sidesteppers, Piranha Plants, etc. Kevin would help out, and it's through this process he begins to reconcile with his family, and Mario begins to see things from his point of view. The enemies themselves would absolutely have to be the star of the show. I want them to be done with practical effects, and it would basically be an homage to 1980s creature feature type movies through a modern lens. If I had to liken it to any movie tone-wise, I'd say Ghostbusters. It takes its threat seriously, but there's a lot of comedy. It's also set in New York City, and of course there'd be lots of fun scenes of monsters rampaging through the town. Bowser would be the main villain, and I'll get to him in a bit. The monsters would emerge from the ground, and Mario and Luigi, whose plumbing business isn't doing well, would pivot their business to basically be exterminators. They have extensive knowledge on the sewer systems of Brooklyn, so they're uniquely suited to fight them. There's so much potential in having the monsters running all over New York and just causing mayhem. Moving on, the next day would have an attack at Kevin's high school, Northridge High, from Sidesteppers. At this point in the story, I want there to be dread surrounding these enemies before we know their deal. Kevin and his friends would try to fight back, but would be forced to flee. Mario and Luigi have a plumbing job not too far off that day, and would eventually go to the school and defeat the crabs with their equipment. They'd be celebrated, but Kevin would be a little embarrassed. I want Kevin's friends to be important characters with a decent amount of screen time. We can understand Kevin's perspective better by having him interact with them, and it would endear him to us a bit better as a character. His friends would be named Rick, Stacy, Romeo, and Julius. Those are the names of the football team that appears in one episode of Captain N the Game Master. Those last two names are fan creations, so this can be a cute reference to that. I also just want to point out the fact that Stacy, despite appearing in one episode, has a weird amount of trivia for her on her wiki, which is kind of funny. It is unknown why Stacy joined 3 football players in the gym for football practice. Did she really just want to motivate them and had nothing else to do? I don't know, like, am I reading too much into this? Is that slut shaming? Or is it just like saying she has nothing going on in her life? I don't know. Luigi would be the one to suggest shifting their business to exterminating monsters, and after some apprehension, Mario agrees. Luigi is the ideas guy. He's the one who makes their equipment for the plumbing business. I also want him to be a bit better at adapting to the times. It would be interesting to have him be more understanding of Kevin, but unable to really say the right thing since he's more nervous and anxious. Pauline would similarly be a good mother to Kevin and genuinely tries to cheer him up, but seemingly hides some secrets and sometimes seems distant. Mario and Luigi's plumbing and extermination business is successful at first, and they rake in a lot of money. Mario, now a bit richer, tries his best to connect with Kevin by treating him. He buys him a PlayStation 5, where you can now purchase Nintendo 50, the Anniversary Collection, for only $49.99. Kevin likes it and sees Mario trying to connect him, but the two still disagree on a lot of things. We get our first cutaway to Bowser. Bowser is the main antagonist of the film, and seems to live in a castle in some other dimension. He's frustrated that his minions don't seem to be making any headway in conquering this world. Bowser would basically be portrayed as a businessman. He wants as much land as possible, and sees Earth as another venue. There's a contrast drawn between him and the more working-class Mario Bros, but also a parallel. As the brothers become more business-savvy, they start to become more like him in some ways. He's served by the 7 mushroom retainers, aka the Toads, but that's not what they were called in the Super Mario Bros. Manual. The retainers would be scared of him and don't like him, but are clearly just working out of fear. They are small and squishy after all. Out of options, he sends more and more of his minions through a portal leading to Earth. Monsters appear through various pipes underneath the New York sewers. The warp zones, if you will. The Mario brothers persevere, but their business faces hardships as the number of attacks raises. Plus, government regulations start to be enforced against them since they don't like 2 fat Italian fucks going through the sewers. Regardless, Kevin becomes more popular at school thanks to Mario and Luigi's reputation. New York getting attacked like this would be pretty big international news. Kevin would also start picking up some tricks to defeating enemies and use it to impress girls or something. In Act 1 and 2, Kevin dealing with high school life and the stress of having famous parents would weigh on him. Eventually, he would get enough confidence from becoming popular that he'd ask out Stacy on a date. His mom would prepare him, and as this happens, we cut away to Bowser, who is increasingly frustrated by his minions' attempt to take NYC. In case it wasn't clear, he's more of a comedy villain, the giant cigar-chomping turtle capitalist. His castle is located in a dark, destroyed kingdom, reminiscent of the Dark World from Super Mario Bros. 3. I always forgot I could use content from the other Super Mario Bros. Games. Frustrated, he yells, "Garland!" A knight in gray armor appears behind him. "Bowser," he calmly replies. This scene involves plot details the audience wouldn't fully know yet, so I'm gonna use some dialogue. "Earth isn't cooperating," Bowser says. "Not my problem," Garland replies. "Let me go there myself." Now that wasn't in our agreement. I give you 1 century to rule, and you stay away from that place. Chaos's power can't sustain itself if you're there for too long. 10 minutes. Just give me 10 minutes to see what's happening and kick someone's ass. 5. Yes, my acting is horrible, and I promise, I will explain, or at least give a little bit of context later. There will be a post-credit scene. Kevin's date goes well, but Stacy decides she wants to stay friends and isn't ready to date now. I'm not planning to have them ever get together. All the Captain and fandom would probably want him to get with Lana, and it makes sense to portray this as a case where people's relationships don't work out but can still be friends. It's important to portray that in media more often, and is better for his character arc now. Kevin is understandably disappointed but becomes frustrated because high schoolers are flawed people. The more pressing issue is that Bowser confronts Mario and Luigi who are in the sewers. Kevin had learned a little bit from his dad and uncle about how to defend himself from the monsters, so he recognizes they're being attacked in the sewers and rushes to their aid. Bowser beats them up with ease. He has magic, which allows him to breathe fire, and he attacks with hammers. Kevin takes a beating, but he distracts Bowser enough so that the 5 minutes are up. Frustrated, he leaves, and as Act 2 ends, he decides to send all of his minions to New York, every single one of them. At this low moment, Mario and Kevin would start to connect. Mario is protective of Kevin, and Kevin begins to see things more from Mario's point of view, even if conflict is still there, as New York kinda goes to shit. This is when Pauline gives a revelation. She's not from this world. Her real name is Pauline Toadstool. As a child, her kingdom was usurped by a demon named Bowser, who she recognized as the one attacking New York. She was told never to tell anyone about this by her parents, who were killed by Bowser. She managed to escape through a portal made by a sorcerer of her kingdom. Pauline believes that because of this, Kevin is special. He has the blood of a strange alternate world flowing through his veins. Luigi looks towards Mario, astonished, but Mario trusts that Pauline had a good reason for keeping this from him. He loves and trusts her no matter what, and knows that at this point he needs his family to be united. I will admit that the backstory for Pauline/Princess Toadstool is a bit clunky. If I was making an actual script, I would have fleshed that out more and hinted at it before. She's also obviously gonna have to get kidnapped in the third act, and I don't want her to just be a damsel in distress. She should have an important role in the plot. Planning complex female characters is hard, but I'm not actually making a script, and this is based on a game series that had like 4 female characters at the time, 2 of which I'm merging together. So that begins Act 3. And this is where all the fun set pieces of monsters rampaging through New York can be placed. Think something like the climax of Gremlins, but a little toned down. Eventually, Bowser would ignore Garland's warnings and head to Earth. Kevin is more prepared and fights him off, but Bowser uses his powers to become giant and takes Pauline, intending to take her back to his kingdom. With the help of the bros and eventually his friends, Kevin takes down the kaiju and reconciles with both Stacy and Mario, saving the day. Kevin raises his hand toward Bowser, and in some process we aren't clued into yet, it causes Bowser's magic powers to disappear, weakening him, and allowing the 7 retainers to effortlessly gain up on him and kick him out of the castle once he's back in Mushroom Kingdom and has no more minions. Kevin, his friends, Pauline, and the Mario Bros all celebrate together by going to the Mario household for a nice spaghetti dinner. Mario and Luigi go back to plumbing. They're more successful than ever, and Kevin even joins in to help from time to time. Mario and Luigi are seen as the heroes of New York City and get handed the key to the city by the mayor. So I guess Zora and Mamdani makes a cameo. That fits the themes of the movie, by invoking the old mayor gives the city to the key trope and what Gen Z is into, socialism. This film would be incomplete if Zora and Mamdani is not able to cameo is what I'm saying. So that is Super Mario Bros. The Captain NCU isn't like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because all these properties weren't originally meant to be combined. That's why I think it's important to connect each of these games through commonalities they share, or could be made to share in an adaptation. One of these commonalities is a theme, how we process our past. The whole conceit of this project is to revive silly Nintendo games that apparently haven't had new entries for 40 years. So it makes sense that the past could be a theme in all of these films. In Super Mario Bros., it takes the form of generations coming together and understanding one another, as well as Pauline, who had to spend years of her life burying her past, only for it to suddenly pop up. I would have called her Peach if that name wasn't exclusive to Japan back then. Later on, the theme of accepting the past and moving on to the future will come into play more and be taken to its natural conclusion with the last movie of the phase, Captain N the Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy has some time shenanigans after all. I wanted to introduce the theme with the first movie, and I think Mario is a good way of doing so. Out of all these movies, it's the one I think would be the most fun, and pretty suited to introduce the cinematic universe to the masses. Of course though, I'm not done with the movie. We have mid-credits and post-credits to get to. I can't believe I'm actually doing this. I know a lot of people are disillusioned by every movie having to have post-credit scenes now, but I'm doing it, it's fun, we're doing this. The mid-credit scene would have one of the 7 retainers pop up from a manhole cover. It's Blue Toad, referencing the Toad from Super Mario Bros. 2. Suddenly Pauline recognizes him and leaves the house running towards him. Toad? The two hug, with Toad having a cute squishable body and all that. Why are you here? She asks. You know what, I wonder what Toad's voice would sound like if he didn't already have his iconic gravelly voice from Mario. That's a legitimately weird thing to think about. Pauline, the Mushroom Kingdom is free. You can go home. Post-credit scene. We see a round table with Garland and 2 other creatures. One, a fierce, 3-headed dragon, and the other, a bulky, humanoid, boar-like creature caked in shadow. Their names? Tiamat and Ganon. Fiends. Bowser is gone. The fool stayed across dimensions for too long? Tiamat snarls. No, if that had happened, Chaos's powers would have disappeared. They went right back to me. Besides, I wouldn't need to call you two here if all that happened was Bowser dying like an idiot. I think there's a warrior of light out there. So in case you weren't aware, Garland is the main antagonist of Final Fantasy. He transforms into a god named Chaos at the end of the game, and he's the big bad of the first Captain NCU phase. I don't want to give away too many plot details before the Captain N crossover movie, but I will say that Bowser, Garland, Tiamat, and Ganon are a group called the Four Fiends, a name that comes directly from Final Fantasy. Garland is their leader, and the avatar of Chaos. Tiamat is from Final Fantasy, and Ganon is from Zelda. The fantasy kingdoms of Mario, Zelda, and Final Fantasy are here made part of the same world. Sometimes I'll merge plot details from different series a bit, which is both necessary to streamline things, and a good way of adding fan service, because these games from series untouched in 40 years would still have fans, I suppose. And that is the first of my 6 pitches. I expected to write like a paragraph or 2, so I think this could quickly get out of hand. I'm approaching this a lot like a writing challenge, so I welcome criticism or solutions on how you'd handle plot details. You can probably come up with at least one thing that will make me think, well fuck, why didn't I think of that? Again, this is a silly idea, but coming up with concepts can be fun. With all that said, are you ready for a pitch that can show how disparate the cinematic universe can get? The next movie is a real massive shift in both tone and probably the age rating. The first Captain NCU horror film, Castlevania. Because a cinematic universe where every movie feels the same isn't fun. Constanta, a city on the Black Sea coast, 1691. We see the leader of a group of pirates, Grant Dynasty, bartering with a merchant. The merchant has 2 horses and a whole caravan behind him. "You're pirates?" he asks. "Transylvania's a long way from the coast." "Once we get there, we won't need to be pirates anymore." Grant hands him a sack of gold. "This should be enough for your trouble." Grant addresses his crew. One asks, "That's a lot of money. You sure we'll be able to make back, Captain?" "Don't worry. Dracula's castle has got enough riches to pay every man here back tenfold." The crew stuffs themselves into a cramped wagon. Grant addresses a younger member of his crew who's staying behind. "If we're not back in a year, ship's yours. Do whatever you want, kid." We also see a mysterious stranger in a dark cloak in the carriage. "He's traveling with us," the merchant says. "Well, get comfortable. It's a bumpy ride." The caravan leaves town on a dark night as we get the title card, Castlevania. The movie is loosely based on Castlevania 3. The protagonists are the playable characters of that game: Trevor, Grant, Sifa, and Alucard. The stranger in that caravan was Sifa. Now, Simon Belmont was the Belmont in Captain N, and I will introduce him, but this won't quite be his movie. He's the descendant of Trevor Belmont, the main character of the movie. Castlevania 3 is set before Castlevania 1 and 2, which both feature Simon, and I thought it would be interesting to adapt it first, while still setting up Simon to appear in Captain N. I did shift the year this game takes place to the 1600s, which is when Castlevania 1 is set, cause I think it makes more sense as a time period for a Castlevania movie. Sometime in the 1980s, we cut to the Belmont Mansion in England. This is where we're introduced to a young Simon Belmont, maybe 8 or 9 years old. This is how Simon Belmont is going to be set up as a character. The movie's framing device is that his father, the Belmont before him, is telling the story of how the Belmonts became a monster hunting clan. One day he'll take their whip, the vampire killer, and become the next monster hunter. Throughout Trevor Belmont's narrative, we get cutaways to Simon hearing the story from his father. At first, Simon is young and terrified by this scary story, but as the cutaways go on, he's older and older, and by the final cutaway, he's ready to become the next monster hunter. To be clear, his father tells him the story multiple times. It's not like he just takes so long Simon ages 30 years throughout the course of the story. Also, this would be a really good time for me to name his father Christopher Belmont, but that character is from the Game Boy Castlevania game, so I can't use it. There are simply not enough Belmonts yet, so I'll just call him John Belmont or something. Yeah. We're introduced to Trevor scoping out a massive castle in the woods on a cliff above. Dracula's castle is imposing and elaborate from the outside. Trevor sees his target and smiles. He jumps down and walks triumphantly towards the main gate, the classic Belmont walk that starts these classic Castlevania games as he enters Dracula's castle. Now, I would want to include a lot of locations that are close recreations of how the castle looks in Castlevania 1 and 3, because it's just a lot of fun. The locations and set pieces are arguably the most iconic part of Castlevania. He walks through the entrance into the castle, finding it suspiciously empty. Once he's in the castle's main entrance, a flame appears next to his face, and he jumps back, brandishing his whip. We see the cloaked stranger put their staff down, and the flame goes away. "You're human. That cloak makes you look like a monster," Trevor says. We see more of the figure's face, but they don't lower their hood. "Judging by that cross on your whip, you're probably not here to serve Dracula." The two realize they're both here to kill Dracula, and figure they should stick together because of how big and dangerous the castle is. They hear some screams, and Trevor follows the sound of the noise. Sifa wants to look for Dracula because they don't care if the pirates live or die, but Trevor wants to destroy all monsters, so he goes to the screams anyways, and Sifa follows. Sifa is a little more utilitarian. They just want to make sure Dracula dies no matter what, while Trevor wants to kill all monsters and save everybody. To be clear, the vampire killer is a chain, not a rope. In the Castlevania games, you need to collect a power-up to turn the whip into a chain whip. But let's be real, 90% of the time, in gameplay, it's a chain. In the basement, a massive crowd of Castlevania skeletons are fighting Grant's pirates. There's about 15 of the pirates, and the skeletons have taken about 5. Trevor comes in and takes a bunch of skeletons out with his whip. Grant thanks him, but is frustrating at losing his crew. Grant and his pirates didn't realize there would be more monsters here. They didn't believe the legends of Dracula and thought the castle would have actually been abandoned. They're not about to let their crew die though. Replacing them is very inconvenient, and most members of the crew want to at least grab some treasure before they leave. The pirates make a tenuous alliance, realizing their chances of survival are stronger if they stay together. The party moves in the direction the skeletons left, in search of the monsters. So now is where I should describe our characters and the tone of the movie. Trevor is inexperienced, rash, and a little cocky. He's motivated primarily by revenge. Dracula killed his family, so he wants to destroy all monsters and prevent it from happening to anyone else. Sifa is a mage, and they're a little more reserved than Trevor. We later find out that Sifa is actually a witch. She disguised herself as a man for most of her life to avoid persecution. Eventually, her village found out her secret, and tasked her with destroying Dracula, the only way to prove that she doesn't serve him. Sifa's gender is ambiguous for now, and most characters, besides Trevor, assume her to be a man. This backstory for Sifa was actually in the original Castlevania 3, although this specific connection with Dracula is something I'm making up for the plot. She'd be from a village somewhere in Transylvania, with a lot of campaigns against witches, who are assumed to be working for Dracula. Then there's Grant. He doesn't care about Dracula or monsters, and is in it for the treasure. He also has a crew of pirates along with him, and they're here so they can be bodies. Yet the framing device of this movie means that we can get pretty bloody, and I want to have lots of character deaths. None of the characters besides Trevor technically need to live, so I will take the opportunity to have a lot of creative and wild kills, and it won't be known who lives or dies by the end of the movie. It won't be a full-on slasher, but Castlevania would definitely have slasher movie elements. The Castlevania games have never been about being actually scary. They're mostly about the gothic aesthetic, set pieces, and the appeal of fighting a bunch of spooky monsters. So, for an adaptation like this, I say playing up the gothic aesthetic and having a lot of scenes where monsters can just kill a bunch of people is the way to go. And it stays true to what Castlevania is. Even though this is based on Castlevania 3, most of the set pieces in the castle and monsters would be based on the first Castlevania. I just think that game has a very strong collection of bosses to adapt. Frankenstein's monster, Igor, mummies, Medusa, and Death would all be here as part of Dracula's army of monsters. Our very own Hugh Jackman Von Helsing. There would also be a hint of comedy in the movie, not as much of a comedy as Super Mario Bros., but some campiness for sure. The group creeps through the castle more and more. Just imagine the Simon Belmont cutaways would happen throughout the movie too. It would be a total pace breaker if I described them each time. Before we're really introduced to Dracula and his monsters, this opening section will establish lots of ambience and the feel of Dracula's castle as a location. The canonical name for the castle in Castlevania is Castlevania, and that is just silly enough for me to want to use it, but I don't know if it was established at this point in the franchise. Suddenly, a vampire flies in, grabbing one of these pirates. He flies off and is about to bite his neck, but throws him down in frustration. This is Alucard, not the hot, long-haired Alucard you know from Symphony of the Night. In Castlevania 3, Alucard was just another vampire like Dracula, only he was on your side. Sifa fights him, throwing magic, to which Alucard turns into a bat and fly away. Maybe we can see Sifa unmasking here, only to put the cloak back on. The crew keeps moving until Medusa shows up, along with 4 armored knights wielding swords. A fight begins. Grant is surprisingly competent at dividing all his men, but a few end up killed, or turned to stone by Medusa. Some are panicking and low on morale, but Grant tries to motivate them, showing a side to him we haven't seen before. I'm going to be keeping a running pirate count because I will be confused if I don't. I said they had about 15 men and 5 got captured, so we have 7 currently remaining. Cut to the 5 captured pirates, brought straight to Dracula's room for him to taste. He sucks the blood out of one of the pirates as the others scream and spits it out. Tastes like salt and fish. Our Dracula will be genuinely intimidating and evil, but has more of an over-the-top side than Dracula typically has in Castlevania media. He's not as much of a comedy villain as Bowser, but he'd still be the kind of villain to invite our heroes to a banquet and feed them to make their blood taste better. He calls for Alucard and tosses him the bud. This version of Alucard will be genuinely tormented by his father Dracula. As a vampire, he's bound to Dracula's castle, and he refuses to drink human blood no matter how much he's tempted to as a vampire. It would almost be portrayed as an addiction. Dracula calling his son into the room and tossing the thing he's trying to quit right in front of him is exactly the kind of dynamic these two are going to have. Dracula laughs. There's a pot roast in the walls around here somewhere, have it if you're hungry, but it won't taste good. Yes, that's a fucking stupid way to make a Castlevania reference, but I had to put it somewhere. Look, I spared you from a Your Princess is in Another Castle reference, so be happy. Igor would show up. He is Dracula's servant, so I suppose he'd also be Half Igor, half Renfield, he informs Dracula that death has captured the rest of the intruders. The banquet can begin. The next scene is where we're fully introduced to Dracula's pantheon of monsters, as the party is forced to sit around a table to have a full meal, with all the foods that would presumably make their blood taste better. Dracula tells them to sit and to enjoy their last meal, confident that no one will try anything because his whole army of monsters surrounds him, with the exception of Death and Medusa. He introduces the party to Frankenstein's monster, Igor, and his son Alucard, who is seated right next to him. The pirates he captured are also seated, bringing the pirate count up to 10. From now on, it only goes down. Trevor and Sifa are full of rage, but they can't do anything. Nobody is eating except for one particular pirate who is really hungry and can't read the room. "Hey, isn't this garlic? What if it, kills you?" he asks Dracula. "It's the garlic flower that harms vampires, not the cloves," Alucard mutters. I have a friend who has told me that fact 3 times now. If you're watching, that was for you. Anyways, Sifa would be unmasked, and at one point there is, "She's a girl" twist. I know, it's a very 1991 trope, but as long as it's done respectfully, I think those kinds of explorations of gender can be effective. A lot of classic monsters like Dracula have historically had a lot of queer subtext to them. Sifa isn't technically trans, but the concept of a woman forced to live as a man can invoke that kind of storyline, especially in the 1600s where that thing is going to get repressed. After being revealed as a girl, Sifa would start to feel more and more comfortable in the castle, and there would be almost an element of temptation to join the monster's side. That won't be the end of her storyline though, because I do not want the conclusion to her storyline being gay monsters bad. Grant would deduce that Alucard could be a potential ally, and would see Trevor with his finger over his pouch, seemingly hiding some sort of weapon. Grant would look over at Alucard, then to Trevor and Sifa, then towards the chandelier, the four making an impromptu plan on the spot. Suddenly, Grant jumps up and throws an axe towards the chandelier, knocking it down onto Dracula's army. Trevor would throw a vial of holy water at Dracula, burning his face for a moment, and Sifa's flames would allow them the chance to run away. The group attempt to escape in the opposite direction as Frankenstein's monster, and Igor blocks their passage. Grant motions for everyone to run as he and Alucard fight the two monsters. Some parts are gonna die here, so let's drop their number to 6. Grant would kill Igor and have a gnarly knife fight with Frankenstein's monster. The creature would lumber around, sustaining cuts and leaking blood and pus. Eventually the creature falls, causing the floor to crumble and making every protagonist but Grant fall to the ground. As you can probably tell by the focus I'm giving to him, Grant is dying here. Frankenstein's monster chokes him to death and falls himself, having lost too many guts and organs. I actually kinda grew to like Grant there. Sorry, he was getting a little too competent for a horror movie. He had to die. Alucard, Sifa, and Trevor would fall to an underground cave section of the castle, leaving Dracula to send his twin mummies after them. Some of the pirates are alive, but separated. Admittedly, I don't know what their purpose would be anymore, but we could have scenes throughout the movie where the monsters kill them in their own gruesome ways. Maybe they could try to help out the protagonists a bit, or just be interested in treasure. At this point, Alucard would explain how he's bound to the castle, his father is evil, and he wanted to oppose him but couldn't leave. Alucard would be sort of like a mentor. He'd teach Trevor and Sifa about the monsters they're up against, and would help them since they're both a little inexperienced, while also fighting his urge to drink human blood. There is still an element of horror here, as Alucard can't fully be trusted all the time. At some point, Alucard explains Dracula's backstory, so I might as well say it now. Dracula was a noble in the 15th century, who saw countless friends and family slaughtered in wars and uprisings. He became a sorcerer, with the ultimate goal of obtaining immortality. Eventually, he summoned a demon from another world, Chaos. Chaos is the source of most monsters from across the world, and he's connected to Garland, and comes from the same world as Bowser, but Alucard doesn't know that part. Chaos made a deal with Dracula. He'd achieve immortality and just a small fraction of Chaos's power, which would make him 1,000 times more powerful than any mortal. He would be bound to Dracula's castle though. It's our understanding that Chaos's power is bound to locations, which is why Bowser lost his powers after going to Earth in Super Mario Bros. Randomly shifting over to talking about Mario never gets old. Dracula was given command of monsters, who also became bound to the castle, and Alucard was forced to turn into a vampire alongside his father. In exchange, Dracula would do one thing for Chaos: go to England and slaughter every Belmont. Clearly he missed one. Sorry if that was a little convoluted, but that's broadly how Castlevania is connected to the rest of the Captain NCU. While Super Mario Bros. Introduced Garland, this is our setup for Chaos, the source of his power. You could still skip other movies and have a basic understanding of Captain N the Final Fantasy, which should be good for a cinematic universe. Also, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, which came out nearly 15 years after Castlevania and is definitely not eligible for the Captain NCU, did establish that Dracula's powers come from a demon named Chaos. I can assure you, it is purely a coincidence. Chaos is a popular name for ancient gods that give people power. The rest of Act 2 has the gang navigating caves underneath Dracula's castle, fighting fish people, and trying to make their way back to Drac. Dracula is very determined to look for Trevor because of his agreement to destroy the Belmonts. There's a legend of the Warriors of Light, 4 warriors who will rise to oppose Chaos. One of them was supposedly a Belmont. We'd also get a look at the rest of the pirates dying in gruesome ways to keep tension up. Trevor, Sypha, and Alucard would warm up to each other, and before leaving the caves, they'd fight the twin mummies, along with a revived Frankenstein's monster. At the end of the fight, Frankenstein's body is lost in the water, and both mummies are taken down. Sypha burns one of the mummies to death, and Trevor is forced to use another vial of holy water to defeat the other. Holy water is very powerful against monsters, but Trevor has a limited supply, and now he only has 2 vials left. The section would also involve lots of needing to navigate and do some cave exploring, because it keeps the plot more interesting and not just fighting monsters. Back at the castle, the 3 climb a set of stairs, fighting off an army, and they face Dracula himself, with Medusa by his side. There is an intense battle, with Sypha handling Medusa, and the others handling Dracula. Medusa would be knocked out of the castle, leaving her fate ambiguous. Trevor would rely on holy water as a crutch, just like anyone playing Castlevania 3, but Dracula dodges the 3rd vial. Alucard would take the 4th and final one, and run up to Dracula, attempting to sacrifice himself like Grant did. Because Alucard is a creature of darkness, he will always be tempted towards evil. At least that's how he sees it. The vampires are both alive, but on the metaphorical death's door, because the actual death appears, killing Alucard with his scythe. He laughs and disappears, as Trevor seemingly finishes Dracula with his only other bit of vampire-killing paraphernalia, garlic flowers. As we all know, Dracula has a second form though, a beast, which is the embodiment of his curse. It flies up to the very top of his tower. I'm a believer that with franchise films, or any films with a recognizable IP, you shouldn't always listen to what fans want, but you should show them what someone would naturally want from the premise to make the audience feel satisfied. In Castlevania's case, this includes a journey up a clock tower to face Dracula. Trevor and Sypha make a long and arduous climb and face Dracula's beast form. The fight is long, but the two are victorious, and Trevor defeats Dracula with his whip. Neither Trevor nor Sypha die because they need to, carry on the Belmont clan. Trevor is the only one who fully accepts Sypha for who she really is, and it causes the two to fall in love with each other. Dracula curses Trevor Belmont with his dying breath, and Trevor declares that if Dracula ever returns, even if he isn't there to strike him down, his future children will be. As the morning light hits Transylvania, Trevor and Sypha leave Dracula's castle and escape the perilous crumbling building. We see a final shot of one monster who has seemingly survived, Death, as the two leave to be together. The movie ends with one final look at Simon in England. He's about 20 and is hearing the story for the final time from his father. His father explains that because he's of age, he can now receive the vampire killer whip and become the next vampire hunter of the Belmont clan. Simon swears to fight for the forces of good as the movie ends with him taking the whip. Not to toot my own horn here, but I think my Castlevania pitch is exemplary of some of the strengths of the cinematic universe model. Not saying this would be a good movie, I hope it would be, but this is very rough. Castlevania is a very different tone from anything else I'm planning for the universe, and it is separated from every other movie by time, but is still able to set up one of the main characters. Once I introduce Simon, I can keep him in a lighter tone than this movie. Let's get to the post and mid-credit scene. We cut to an unnamed island off the coast of Greece. Inside, we see Simon Belmont, now about the age of 30, talking to a village elder. "You're a monster hunter, I understand," he asks warily. "The best," Simon gleams. I'm afraid we need your services." She's returned. "The god of darkness, Medusa." Simon Belmont will return in Kid Icarus, not taking questions. Post-credit scene brings us back to the ruins of Dracula's castle. Trevor and Sifa mark graves for Alucard and Grant, and after paying their respects, they decide to go to England to live out their lives together. Trevor trips on a piece of rubble and finds a fully intact pot roast underneath it. He takes it with him. So that's Castlevania. Now tell me, what's the most different type of movie you could possibly imagine from what I just described? Mega Man has got to be close, right? In the 80s, many video games were basically playable takes on genres. Castlevania had a bunch of horror tropes, Final Fantasy was basically a digital D&D campaign, and Mega Man was very inspired by retro sci-fi, and Astro Boy in particular. So I want to lean into those inspirations for the Mega Man movie. Mega Man would basically be portrayed as a superhero, and the movie would be bright and pulpy, but it would also deal with the societal and political implications of robots used for war. Pacifism has always been an undertone of Mega Man I'd like to explore. If I had to compare my movie to anything out there, I'd say it would be the James Gunn Superman movie. It's hopeful. Mega Man is a savior of humanity against Dr. Wily and his robots, but it also does deal with what a world where these robot conflicts happen would actually look like. The movie begins in Tokyo, 1980s. We see a scientific conference being held by the world's two leading robot scientists, Dr. Thomas Light and Dr. Albert Wiley. The two are good friends and work closely together. Japan is the only country where nuclear weapons have been used against human populations, Light explains. And now, with the threat of another nuclear catastrophe on the horizon, humanity needs defensive tools more than ever. We present Project Rock and Roll. He unveils blueprints of robot designs, the 6 robot masters from the original Mega Man: Gutsman, Iceman, Fireman, Elecman, Bomb Man, and Cut Man. Dr. Wily takes over to explain their potential usages for military conflicts. While Light was careful to explain that they should only be used for defense, Wily plays up their potential for conflicts, to which the crowd, made up mostly of investors, is more into. Even gets a few laughs out of them at one point. Light takes over once Wily is finished, explaining each robot master. The final stage of Project Rock and Roll is Mega Man. Mega Man is equipped with a plasma-based Mega Buster and quick reflexes, which can discern enemy targets and prioritize civilian safety. But Mega Man's main draw is the ability to copy any machine. Once Mega Man learns and grows, his potential as a tool for defense could be limitless. The crowd is now fully invested in what Light is saying. Now, while it depends on the funding we receive, the project is estimated to take... Dr. Wily looks at Light, shaking his head, trying to get him to stop what he's about to say. 10 years at the soonest to fully complete. I really like the concept of Light and Wily being former friends, which helps the political angle of the movie and connects us to the villain. It works within the recurring theme of confronting your past as well. I'm allowed to use content from the first 4 Mega Man games. Even though Mega Man 2 is easily the more iconic Mega Man game, I think Mega Man 1 has better robot masters, which is why I adapted them instead. 6 robot masters also lets me flesh them out a little more. Also, Project Rock and Roll does technically reference the Japanese version of the game with Mega Man's name, but we're in Japan. I think a small reference to the Famicom version of the game doesn't break my rules too much. Let's finish the scene. Dr. Wily is frustrated as the two leave. No one wants to invest in their robots. The two argue, with Light asserting the need to be ethical and honest, and Wily asserting the need for people to actually give them money. The two are friends, but are clearly divided on many issues. Light makes one thing clear: if their robots are going to be used as war machines, he doesn't want to be part of the project. We cut to a news report in the modern day, showing the footage of Bowser rampaging through New York from the climax of Super Mario Bros. After the events in New York City 2 months ago, where 2 heroic plumbers and their son saved the day, monster attacks have only risen in frequency throughout the world. While nobody has been killed by the attacks, their frequency has overwhelmed local militaries, and experts say it's only a matter of time before something drastic may happen. We have an exclusive interview with one such expert, but first, a special report on the currently developing Outer Heaven incident in South Africa. The same spot in Tokyo where Light and Wily gave their speech is under attack from a giant golem in the present day. It's the golem enemy from Dragon Quest, but big enough to rampage through Tokyo. I'm okay with that "oh wow, I know what that thing is" type of referencing, as long as it's actually relevant to the plot. In this case, there needed to be a monster rampaging through Tokyo, so I made it a Dragon Quest monster. Well, I have to call it Dragon Warrior. And Dragon Warrior is presumably still more popular in Japan. Mega Man arrives to save the day. Mega Man runs up to the monster as he communicates with Light and Roll, who are waiting nearby in the jet. Mega Man shoots the golem with his arm blaster, and defeats it after a short action sequence. He waves to the crowd and smiles, before hopping on the jet to go back home. Mega Man is characterized as being a little overconfident and rash, but he's young and is genuinely hopeful and optimistic. Roll congratulates him. She basically acts as reconnaissance for the mission, looking out for civilians in danger and guiding Mega Man. Dr. Light is proud too, but a little more subdued. He's Mega Man's father figure, and seems a little worried about Mega Man being a super fighting robot. They fly back to Dr. Light's lab in San Francisco, and we get some time as the family lives together. Light immediately checks up with Mega Man to make sure he wasn't damaged. Roll is very energetic and smart, since her role is to help Mega Man on his missions. Despite Dr. Light's anxieties, the three get along well. Light goes to sleep and the robots power down for the day. The next morning, we see the three living their mundane lives a little. Light is reading the newspaper. He's seemingly retired or not working on any scientific projects currently, while Roll sweeps up around the house. Eventually, the three go to a park, which gives us a picture of their peaceful life. Mega Man and Roll are disguised, which clearly shows that the broader populace don't know their identities. If I was allowed to use Mega Man Soccer, I would make them play soccer. Roll gets a call on her watch that there's a threat somewhere in South Africa, so the three run back to the jet and leave straight away. We cut to a laboratory somewhere in Russia, to Dr. Wily. He's surrounded by some of the robot masters, and we find out that he's gotten funding from a group of Russian oligarchs who he's talking to right now. He also has an assistant, Dr. Cossack, who helped him out by building the robots. Wily speaks up. "I thank you for your funding and all your help with my projects, gentlemen. Nobody will be able to resist our power now that the robot masters are out there. Soon we will be very rich men indeed." South Africa. Another golem is rampaging through a town as the jet lands. This time the golem is much stronger. Mega Man struggles against the beast, and just when it seems like it's about to harm innocents, Fireman shows up, defeating it effortlessly. Fireman is a confident show-off. Dr. Light panics and explains who he is to Mega Man, and Mega Man pulls out his Mega Buster in preparation to fight. Flame Man tries to get him to join Dr. Wily, but Mega Man refuses, so the two fight. Mega Man struggles, while Light tells him to use his scan feature. Mega Man is able to copy Fireman's fire and match him evenly, so Fireman flees to a jungle. Mega Man hasn't had to use the copy ability before, since he's only been fighting monsters. Before Fireman left, he leaves behind a card disclosing the location of Dr. Wily's lab. Mega Man and Roll immediately want to go, but Dr. Light refuses. He explains that before the two parted ways, Wily stole the plans for his 6 robot masters. He doesn't know why, but Wily has decided to finally put them into action. Light wants to confront Wily, but he claims it would be too dangerous for Mega Man to come with them. The Robot Master's powers, combined, far surpasses his own. Light must confront Wily himself. Fireman dashes through the forest and meets with Iceman and Bombman by a military encampment. They talk to an American soldier who explains that a soldier named Big Boss defected from their country and has declared a sovereign nation in South Africa, Outer Heaven. The US government wants to start military action against them, but they know that they can't attack unprovoked. So this is where the Robot Masters come in. The soldiers flee as their robots use their powers to destroy the encampment. They performed a false flag attack, so that now military action can be justified. To be clear, I am not planning on setting up a Metal Gear movie or introducing Snake to the universe. This is just a world building detail that makes sense and happens to reference another NES series. I am deliberately making it open though, so that way maybe it can be expanded on in the future in the slim chance I may use it. Back at the lab, Light is about to depart while Roll tells him to watch the news. First robot used in human combat, is what the headline says. Shocked, Light and Mega Man watch the news reports. Robots designed by renowned scientist Dr. Thomas Light were supposedly used in the attack in Outer Heaven today. We've spoken to his former partner Dr. Wily to give insight in the developing story. Thomas Light's usage of robots against American soldiers is nothing short of treasonous, Wily exclaims. These robots, Fireman, Iceman, Bombman, and Mega Man, were supposed to stand for peace and defense of humanity. Mega Man, Light, and Roll look around in desperation, as the news report shows interviews with the public, disappointed that their hero would do such a thing. The three see a mob amassing outside the lab, and Light realizes it would be dangerous if the two robots stay behind, so they depart to Wily's laboratory together. To be clear, this is a random laboratory in Siberia. It is not the iconic Skull Fortress. That comes later. Roll remarks that it's probably going to be a trap, but they land anyways. They're a little out of options. Mega Man fights some generic robots, basically the enemies from the game, who come to attack, as Wily emerges. His robot masters, the 3 who didn't go to South Africa, point weapons at Mega Man, and Mega Man is about to fight back until Light stops him. Wily captures the 3 and leads them to his base. Wily is overconfident, showing them everything he's accomplished. He explains how the recent monster attacks have given him the justification to finally put his project to fruition, and that he's been able to amass a fortune from Russian funding. He takes them to a central room where the oligarchs and Dr. Cossack are amassed. "You were supposed to help humanity," Dr. Light says. Wily scowls. "Take them away." Gutsman appears and leads Light and Roll to a prison, while Mega Man stays behind. Mega Man, the savior of humanity, Wily says. "How long do you really think that can go on? You're the strongest thing Dr. Light has ever built. With your copy powers, if you keep fighting like this, you'll become more dangerous than you can possibly imagine. Even if humanity forgives you now, they'll never accept you fully. Can humanity really love a nuclear bomb?" "It doesn't matter if I'm dangerous," Mega Man shouts. "Humans need someone to protect them. They need to be shown that we can handle anything together. You only care about the money. How are you helping anyone?" Wily looks over at Elec Man, standing to the side, and nods. Elec Man shoots a beam at the Russian oligarchs, and they all fall over dead. Mega Man and Cossack are completely surprised as Wily continues. They serve their purpose. "Look, Mega Man, this was never about the profit. These monster attacks have just made humanity's inadequacies even clearer to me. People need robots to govern them and make their difficult decisions. I will bring us to a new age ruled by fear. I can reprogram you. Either you join me or I make you join me. I can't let your strength go to waste. The dialogue will probably be more subtle if I made this an actual script. Mega Man breaks free and attempts to break Light and Roll out of their jail cell. It's made out of a special alloy, unbreakable by robots, so Light tells Mega Man to flee on his own. There's an escape sequence where Mega Man runs outside the laboratory, using his Mega Buster to break small robots. He's surrounded by 3 robot masters who are here: Gutsman, Cutman, and Elecman. Mega Man doesn't want to have to scrap them, seeing them as his brothers, but they fight him anyway. After taking some damage, he starts using flames, which give him more of an advantage, and he's able to copy Gutsman, which gives him super strength. Eventually, he destroys Gutsman. The other robots are surprised for a moment, and it seems to weigh heavily on Mega Man, but he can't wait any longer, so he breaks out of the facility and runs to the jet. Suddenly, Dr. Cossack is also seen running out of the facility. He explains how he was the leading robot scientist in Russia before being forced to work for Dr. Wily, who had kidnapped his daughter. It was actually him who put Wily's robots to fruition by creating the Robot Masters. He knows that he couldn't keep working with Wily after seeing him kill the Russian oligarchs. Seeing Mega Man fight despite his family being kidnapped inspired him to break free. Mega Man would soon realize how he had a positive impact on Cossack, which would help him deal with his fears about becoming too dangerous. Mega Man's character arc in this movie is about reckoning with the world becoming more complicated than he realized, and the fact that his powers are going to become increasingly dangerous as he goes on. Realizing he needs to stick to his principles throughout and remain the defender of humanity. The two don't know where to go or what to do, but they're being chased by the robots, so they fly away in the jet. Back in Dr. Wily's prison, we see Kalinka Cossack, the daughter of Dr. Cossack, who is imprisoned alongside Light and Roll. She explains the situation to them as Wily's laboratory rises out of the sky. It flies somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, where it lowers onto a massive fortress on an island with a huge skull on front. Cossack and Mega Man fly to Dr. Light's lab. The protests have died down. There can be a funny moment where Cossack nerds out about all the tech Light has built. Mega Man wonders about what to do now, and Cossack explains Wily's laboratory is equipped with the ability to fly, and Wily would have probably just moved by now. A big flying lair. I feel real stupid for joining up with him now. Just pretend he has a Russian accent. Is this a scanner of some kind? Cossack asks. He's pointing at a monitor of a grid map of the world. There's 4 red glowing dots at various points on the map. Yeah, we use it to tell when there's monsters on the loose, Mega Man says before he realizes what they mean. We need to go now. As the two head off, Wily's face is on the news again. Thankfully, I managed to reprogram Dr. Thomas Light's rogue robots. Miraculously, they're working for me and the betterment of humanity. However, one robot eluded my grasp. Mega Man. This is the classic go fight the Robot Masters moment, with 4 Robot Masters instead of 6. The 4 Robot Masters are fighting monsters throughout the world: Iceman, Cutman, Bombman, and Fireman. They're pretty reckless. The civilians are running and cowering in fear, and the Robot Masters don't seem to be helping. Mega Man appears where Iceman is located and a battle ensues. At first the civilians are scared of him, but we see him deliberately avoiding and even rescuing civilians from the debris. He defeats Iceman and absorbs his power. The civilians just stand around in a crowd afterwards, not sure what to think. He smiles and waves and gets back in the jet. Through a montage, we see Mega Man fighting Cutman and Bombman in random places throughout the world. In the montage, we also see Cossack trying to trace the signal of Dr. Wily's broadcasts to find out where he's located. We also see the 3 Kalinka, Light, and Roll in jail to remind us they do exist. By the end of his fights, the crowd is fully cheering for Mega Man. The world at large still hates him, but he's at least got some people rooting for him. Cossack is also able to pinpoint Wily's location, but still needs about half an hour to find the precise coordinates, as Mega Man prepares a rematch against Fireman in South Africa. Mega Man beats Fireman pretty bad with his fancy new powers, except Fireman is able to use his fire to fly away. He seemingly scanned Mega Man through some technology we don't know. Because of the monster attack, the conflict in Outer Heaven has calmed down. Mega Man hangs out a bit until they're ready. Cossack needs some time to pinpoint the location of Dr. Wily's lab. And they fly to Skull Fortress. Mega Man bursts through the front gate, blasting robots and looking for Wily. At one point he defeats Fireman for real, and he's followed by Cossack on the lookout for prisoners. Mega Man enters a large room without any other doors in sight, where a giant mech comes crashing down, piloted by Wily. The two fight. The entire room is crumbling, and the action sequence is interspersed with our three prisoners who are broken free when the laboratory starts to crumble around them. Elec Man was guarding them, so they redirect his electricity and defeat him. The whole thing can be Roll's idea because I need more things for Roll to do. Meanwhile, Mega Man destroys the robot and Wily falls out, pleading for his life in the classic way Dr. Wily does. As this happens, the rest of the gang meet with Mega Man. Kalinka and Cossack reunite, while Mega Man explains what happened while they were in prison. Light is worried at first, but is proud of Mega Man for being able to handle it. Mega Man is worried he's too dangerous, but Light reassures him that no matter what happens, he's still a good person, with humanity's interest at heart. Wily gets up, and out of anger, he calls out Mega Man for protecting humans, who he sees as pathetic and deserving of subjugation. Roll will record this, so she can reveal Wily as a fraud later on. I know it's a cliche plot point, but I think it's a trope for a reason. For a villain who spends his time manipulating the world, it makes sense as a way for his lies to get exposed. Suddenly, Wily steps back and presses some kind of button. Mega Man fights, copy Mega Man. Wily was able to replicate the technology that allows Mega Man to copy things, and when Fireman scanned Mega Man, he used it to create a clone. The Mega Man clone is even more destructive than Mega Man, using all of his abilities recklessly, to the point that the fortress is being destroyed. Everyone flees while Mega Man fights this dark reflection of himself. Mega Man is more careful than Mega Man though, even though Mega Man uses more raw destructive power, so Mega Man triumphs over Mega Man in the end. The gang flies away with their prisoner Wily in tow. Back at the lab, Mega Man hands over Wily to the police officers, who vows revenge, while Dr. Cossack is conveniently not in frame. A huge crowd forms around Mega Man, now cheering him on. He smiles and greets the crowd, along with Light and Roll as we fade to black. The movie ends with the five at a dinner table, all one big family, including Kalinka and Dr. Cossack. Cossack reveals that he's trying to get a work visa with the US government. Luckily, they will probably accept it because it would mean taking Russia's best scientist away, and this new field of robotics technology being on their side would be useful. Unrealistic, optimistic view in the current political climate, but it's a Mega Man movie. I think it's a little excusable. A siren sounds, signaling a monster attack, so the group prepares, setting off in the jet, so humanity's defenders can defend once again. That is Mega Man doesn't set up Garland or Chaos, but it does have a few broader lore implications. Mega Man gives us more of a picture of how the world operates, and gets changed by increasing casual monster attacks. The presence of robots also gives this world more of a sci-fi leaning. It is the first time I bring in a bunch of references to other unrelated NES series too, which is something I'm not opposed to doing more in the future. You get connections to Metal Gear, Dragon Warrior, and probably a few others in forms of monsters that I haven't figured out yet. I don't want the monsters to be too crazy or strong because it would probably overshadow the actual Mega Man stuff. Even though the robot masters are from Mega Man 1, I also took inspiration from Mega Man 4, which is just barely eligible since it came out in 1991. Specifically the Cossacks, and that game had Mega Man traveling the world to fight robot masters as well. I made the joke about James Gunn's Superman. You can probably tell I really like that movie. There are some points of inspiration, and plot details that are pretty similar. such as Dr. Wily manipulating the protagonist's public perception, the general air of hope, and a battle against a clone in the finale, I think it's different enough in the context of this pitch that it's not like plagiarism or anything. Wily swears revenge, which leaves him open to appear in future movies. I don't have plans for him or anything, but he'd have to be in Mega Man 2 if that happens in a future phase. Considering how iconic Mega Man 2 the game is, that movie would 100% have to just be called Mega Man 2. The other movies have antagonists who are left open to future appearances too. Bowser and Death, although I at least have a plan for them. The next movie is Kid Icarus, where Simon Belmont appears, and that will be in my next video. Let's end with the mid-credits and post-credits scenes. Cossack has his work visa now. Mega Man enters with a robotic companion beside him, Rush the dog, who is built by both scientists shortly after the events of the movie. Rush acts like any dog, running towards the scientists and licking their face as they try to work. The scientists, though, have come to a realization after studying the patterns of monster attacks and their DNA. Dr. Light explains to Mega Man, somewhere out there is some kind of alternate dimension. That's where these monsters have been coming from. I don't know why or what's going on, but the barrier between our world and theirs is getting thinner. Post-credit scene. Funny one, no lore implications. Maybe some lore implications, but it's mostly a funny one. It's a news report done by the same reporter we saw earlier on in the film. With the recent revelations of Dr. Wily's motives, a lot of people have been left scared and confused. We've interviewed the saviors of New York City from 3 months ago, the Mario family. Hello Mario, Luigi, Pauline, and Kevin. The news report changes to the Mario standing in front of their home with their fanciest dress, which is probably not very fancy. Toad is there too. He went unacknowledged by the news reporter. After an awkward pause, they all say, "Hello. Do you trust Dr. Wily?" "Oh, don't get me started on that guy," Mario exclaims. He takes the microphone and starts walking up to the camera. "You know what this is? All of this is anti-Italian discrimination." Okay, cut the camera, The movie ends as the Marios get blacklisted from television due to Mario's poor decorum. And that is the first half of Phase 1 done. I'd love to hear any criticisms or changes you'd have of my pitches or expectations you'd have for the Kid Icarus, Legend of Zelda, and Captain N movies. I promise I will not steal any plot points from your suggestions. I have most of them like halfway planned out. Wrong! I have them fully planned out. Here's episode 2, covering the next 3 movies of the Captain NCU. Fill your popcorn, do whatever you need to do to relax, get comfortable, But one more thing. So, Super Mario Bros., Castlevania, and Mega Man are all beloved games to me that I've played many, many times. Kid Icarus is a game I've played a few times, but I haven't gone past like the first couple of levels. So the gameplay footage today is going to be awful compared to the past video. I present Kid Icarus. We begin in Paliopolis, a village on an island off the coast of Greece, modern day. The village is poor and we see people hungry and afraid, left in complete destitution. They whisper tales of Medusa's curse having struck the village. However, this village is inclined to look on the bright side of life, because it has one ray of hope. Pit. Yes, this is the short, dorky Pit from the original Kid Icarus. If you're thinking of a Pit who is even slightly cool like Kid Icarus Uprising, get that image right out of your mind. Pit greets the villagers as he goes by, and seeing him brings a smile to their faces. After we've suitably accustomed to the village, we cut to Pit, walking into a Parthenon-like structure on a hill over the village. This is a meeting place for the Order of Icarus, the force that Pit leads, who protects the village. Around him are about 10 to 12 centurions, a modest little military force. "Well, centurions," Pit says, "today's the day we set off to adventure." Just then, On the other side of the island, a ferry reaches the shores. Out steps one man, a rich blonde guy in his 30s holding a suitcase. This is Simon Belmont. So I alluded to this before, but Simon Belmont from Castlevania is one of the protagonists in the Kid Icarus movie. I will get into it a bit more after I've set the scene, but he does serve a purpose in the narrative in a Kid Icarus movie that I think enhances it rather than just having him for the sake of a crossover. Last we saw him in Castlevania, he was a bit younger and eager to take up the vampire killer whip, but now he's older and has let the power go to his head a little. He clearly hasn't fought very many monsters, and spends most of his time stewing about in his $1 million mansion, enjoying the benefits of the Belmont fortune. Basically, he's Simon Belmont just as you remembered him in the 80s TV show. Simon wanders the village aimlessly until a local points him in the direction of the village chief's hut. The chief greets him graciously, along with Pitt, who is standing right next to him. Simon is a little confused as to why Pitt is here, but he's just here for a job. He's heard there's a monster to slay. I've sent that letter because I believe the goddess of death, Medusa, has returned, the village chief explains. Well, if there's a monster to slay, I can do it, Simon boasts. The chief starts to explain the terms of the deal, and it's a little less straightforward than Simon had expected. According to Paleopolis legend, the goddess of light Palutena has hidden artifacts called the Three Sacred Treasures on an island near Paleopolis. The Arrow of Light, the Wings of Pegasus, and the Mirror Shield. They're the only things that are powerful enough to defeat Medusa, the goddess of darkness, and only a true hero can make the journey to use them. Since many warriors have tried to make the journey and none have returned, he wants Simon Belmont to make the Odyssey and find the treasure. Pitt and the Order of Icarus will help you on your quest. Simon groans. None of this was part of the original plan. He hates the idea of having to go along with some kid, but he thinks back to his boring, empty mansion and dwindling funds and looks to the chief's desk. All the wealth of the whole village assembled here, just for him. I'll do it, he says. I'm Pitt. Pitt reaches out to shake Simon's hand. Pleasure doing business with you. We don't get very many outsiders here. Yeah, whatever. Don't expect me to babysit you on this job. So the genre I'm envisioning for this pitch takes a lot of influence from classic sword and sandal movies, a genre you don't exactly see done very often in the modern day. But this will also take cues from adventure movies, where groups of disparate people have to work together to find treasure, like Indiana Jones. This dynamic is centered around the characters of Pitt and Simon, two people from very different sides of a continent with completely different lives, who will become friends by the end of the movie, even if Simon never would have imagined that from the beginning. So in my previous Castlevania movie, Simon Belmont was not the main character. His ancestor Trevor was. However, Simon was set up as the future of the Belmont clan, and will be one of the protagonists in Captain N: The Final Fantasy. So that's why I want to establish him as having a connection with another protagonist a little early, so that way the lead up to the first Captain N movie can be a little smoother. Now I realize having Simon in Kid Icarus is quite a big departure from the source material, but keep in mind that Simon Belmont is not the only main character. Pitt would still have a character arc and just as much screen time as Simon. Or, I'm imagining that at least. This is not actually a real movie. Unless Nintendo wants to buy it off me, I will accept that for the low price of adding Saki from Sin and Punishment to Smash, nothing else. Since Kid Icarus only had one game in the 80s, it's not as defined of a series as it is now. Would this be a good way to adapt Kid Icarus now, outside of a cinematic universe? No, absolutely not. But with those outside factors I'm adding in taken into consideration, I think it could be cool. Pitt explains more about the job as the two reach a small longboat. This is our ship. The crew's about 12 strong and the journey is about 1.5 days. The ferry was so much nicer, Simon complains. Simon is something of an audience stand-in right now. Well, hopefully his attitude doesn't match the audience too much. I mean that in the way that he'd be a vehicle by which more of the setting is explained. The inhabitants worship a supreme goddess of light named Palutena, who is locked in battle against a goddess named Medusa. The other Greek gods like Zeus or Poseidon are lesser gods and have very different roles than their pop culture versions. This is because Palaeopolis was so isolated from the mainland that their traditions and culture is different from the rest of Greece. Basically, this is the in-universe explanation for why everything in Kid Icarus barely resembles actual Greek mythology. Simon Belmont needs to make two quips in particular: making fun of the Order of Icarus for being named after someone who plummeted to a watery grave, and mocking Pitt by adding a kiss to a word unnecessarily a kiss, like Pitt does in Captain and the Game Master. He was actually named Kid Icarus in that show, but he's called Pitt in the manual to Kid Icarus, so I don't know why that needs to happen. As Pitt and Simon prepare to depart, a rival ship sails by. It's captained by a stranger in a dark purple robe. This is the Order of Pluton, Pitt explains. They also worship Palutena, but are more selfish, and are led by a mage named Uranus. Uranus mocks Simon, and in that moment, Simon realizes that even though he's annoyed by Pitt, he hates this guy way more. The Order of Pluton makes it clear that they're after the three sacred treasures, because every good adventure movie needs rivals. Watch out for Uranus. He might only have one spell, but it's a dangerous one, says Pitt. And what spell is that? Simon replies. Eggplant. I rushed over a few details here, but this opening section should be about 20 minutes long since it fully establishes the stakes and mood for the adventure. As with other pitches, this is pretty different from how you might imagine a Kid Icarus movie could work, but that's what you signed up for when you clicked on a video about the Captain N cinematic universe. A lot of the appeal of Kid Icarus is that the gameplay is a constant ascent from the underworld to the sky world. And while that's not what's happening here, it's still an adventure that captures some of that feeling. A few hours pass on the open seas. Pitt and the Centurions enjoy themselves while Simon mopes about. A storm erupts, and the crew are faced with the first sign that they're in dangerous waters. A Hydra monster named Hydra. Hydra attacks the ship, and Pitt leads the Centurions to fight back. Simon swings his whip wildly and isn't much help. He doesn't want to admit it, but he hasn't actually fought a monster like this until now. He's only heard stories from his father. An action sequence plays out, and just as it seems like the Hydra, which Google Docs autocorrect keeps wanting me to change to Hebrew, is about to chomp on a Centurion, its body goes limp. It looks overgrown, swollen, and purple. Simon cuts it in half with ease, causing juice to spew out everywhere. Damn it! My eggplant spell needs work. Uranus sails by, stealing their win. It's clear that if these groups meet again, it might get a little more heated, but since they're on the open seas and just want to get to their destinations, there's a tentative truce for now. It doesn't stop Simon from being mad, and maybe he and Pitt can have a moment where they start to agree or talk more amicably when complaining about him. Eventually, night falls and Simon goes to sleep. The next day arrives. The ship hits a rocky mountainous island. Pitt understands immediately this is their destination. The three sacred treasures are hidden here, in a cave so deep it's known as the Underworld. The middle chunk of this movie would be the most like an adventure movie. The party moves through caverns, solving various puzzles, and escaping monsters and booby traps. Pitt would find it easy. He's prepared his whole life for something like this, and he's excited to be living the legend he's heard so many times before. After a good while, the party finds a large wooden door guarded by a fearsome, fire-breathing, two-headed dog, Twin Bellows. You see, he's like Cerberus, but with less heads. During the fight, Simon is a little less helpless than before, and the two defeat the beast. If the legends are right, explains Pitt, the three sacred treasures should be behind this very door. Pitt opens the gate to find a large stone room, filled to the brim with monsters. Their queen sits on a throne surrounded by 2 columns, Medusa, looking suspiciously as she did in Castlevania. In a comedic stealth scene, the 2 nervously sneak past the monsters to get to the other side of the room where the 3 sacred treasures lay. After several minutes with too many close calls, the 2 make it right in front of the treasure chamber. Simon smiles as they walk towards the chamber. I get to keep these once Medusa is slain, right? But before Pit can respond, a booming voice interrupts them both. You can't sneak past me that easily, Belmont. Simon and Pit turn to see Death. Another reason I chose to cross over Kid Icarus and Castlevania is that Castlevania had 2 prominent monsters who come from Greek mythology. Death / the Grim Reaper / Thanatos, and Medusa. It just so happens Kid Icarus also has those things. Those 2 characters' fates were left ambiguous in Castlevania, leaving me with the opportunity to bring them back here. Simon attempts to be charming. So you've heard of me. But Death just says, I can't let you get those treasures. Pit and Simon combine their might to try to hold him off, but are unsuccessful. Death is about to slash them both with his scythe, when suddenly a familiar purple mage runs by. Uranus grabs the treasure, and the cove they're in begins to crumble. Death seems to be pleased. He lets up the scythe as Simon and Pit struggle to get up. This is when Death explains how he fought against Simon's ancestor Trevor hundreds of years ago, but he and Medusa were different from the other monsters. They didn't serve Dracula himself, but they're direct creations of Chaos, a god from another world who is the source of most of the monsters from across folklore and mythology. After Dracula's defeat, they were forced to go to the strongest source of dark energy, this island. This dark cave was the place where the barrier between both worlds was the slimmest. I'm aware this is a big exposition dump, but I hope I'll make it a little more natural if this was an actual script. Simon is completely shaken up. He's lived his whole adult life in luxury without ever having to make any hard decisions. And now, Simon is being hit in the face with the reality that every part of his Belmont legacy was real. Death laughs. He explains that the 3 sacred treasures were the seal between both dimensions. And now that the last vestiges of that barrier between dimensions is gone, monsters can truly wreak havoc. This is what they've been waiting for. The 3 sacred treasures can only be wielded by legendary warriors, known as the Warriors of Light, and the monsters fear their power so much they didn't want anyone to get their hands on them, for fear that they might be a Warrior of Light. But clearly your friend over here is not a Warrior of Light. Death points to Uranus, who is being corrupted by the treasures. He can barely move on his own and is screaming in pain. He attempts to cast a spell on Death when, boom, it explodes in his face. Simon and Pit stare at a man whose face is an eggplant as the room crumbles around them, sending Pit and Simon crashing into a cave below. Death says, I think your precious Paluopolis will be the first place to go, as he disappears. So that's the whole plot of Kid Icarus, and how it connects to the rest of the franchise. It is also, of course, how the extremely iconic villain Eggplant Wizard is born. That was a lot, so I kind of feel like I should say something, but I don't really know what. Besides the fact that Kid Icarus, the game, is weird. A lot of NES games are weird, but Kid Icarus has always felt even more surreal, and I want a lot of that oddness to be captured here. I mean, Kid Icarus is the game with the speck nose. It's weird in a way that, like, Mario isn't. Pit and Simon wake up in a cave, completely isolated with no way out. They make a campfire, and this is where Simon starts to warm up to Pit as they talk about their circumstances. Simon reflects on how he's grown lonely and cynical when he hasn't been able to get the monster hunting jobs he's wanted. Pit reflects on how he feels like his one purpose is this, and if he's not able to defeat Medusa, he'll feel like a failure. Even then, he doesn't know what to do once Medusa is gone, and this quest is over because his whole purpose will be gone with her. The two find comfort in each other as they think they're gonna die shortly. Simon apologizes for being an ass and says, "You're an alright kid, you know that, Pit." Pit responds, Simon, you know that I'm 22, right?" A rope descends from the top. They're saved by one of their centurions. This one is important, so I think he can be a named character. Let me check the Kid Icarus manual. Colin. He can be named Colin. Pit and Simon escape. Colin explains that the other centurions have managed to survive and are waiting for him out on the beach. Now their priority is to escape so that they can defeat Medusa and Death. They hear rumblings and quickly realize their priority now is to get the hell out of there. The party runs out from the building, dodging falling debris and going backwards through the booby traps. Suddenly, they're confronted by Uranus again, back to hassle them like an annoying splinter they just can't get rid of. The spell affected him, but not fully, leaving his face to be that of an eggplant out for revenge. Colin runs ahead as they fight. Uranus isn't able to use the three sacred treasures to their full extent, but he's still much more powerful than what Pit and Simon can handle, and Simon still isn't fully accustomed to this whole teamwork thing. Eventually, Uranus hits Simon with his spell, and Simon is fully turned into a big eggplant with legs. Pit needs to get out of there to help him fast. In a chase sequence, Pit is being pursued by Pluton, who is firing arrow after arrow. Pit runs for his life with Eggplant in tow, jumping around and trying clever ways to slow down Uranus. Eventually, he's face to face with Medusa. Pit doesn't know what to do. Defeating her was the whole goal of this adventure, but now he doesn't know if he can anymore since he's caring for Eggplant Simon, and this whole place is falling apart. Eventually, Pit says screw it and fights her, with Uranus on the other side of the room, firing light arrows at whichever he can hit. This is a good moment for Pit, but almost deliberately unsatisfying because the problem isn't going to end here. Pluton's light arrow hits Medusa, rendering her immobile and allowing Pit to finish her off. She falls into a pit of lava and is gone for good. Pit looks over at Uranus, and the two don't share a single word as Pit proceeds to leave. I'm gonna just stick to calling Uranus Eggplant Wizard now. It is way longer to say, but also more fun to say. Pit and Simon leave as Eggplant Wizard is surrounded by fallen rubble. Pit and Simon go to the beach outdoors. The rest of the Order of Icarus and the Order of Pluton, who were abandoned by their leader, are there. It's a beautiful sunset outside, but no one can enjoy it because of the atmosphere of uncertainty. By technicality, Pit's work is done. Medusa has been slain, but there's still so many loose ends. Death is beginning an invasion of the surface world. The three sacred treasures are gone, and Simon is an eggplant with Pit having no idea how to turn him back. "What should we do, Pit?" Colin asks. Pit gets up, suddenly finding newfound determination. "As long as death threatens us and my friend is stuck like this, we're not leaving this island." Pit nervously turns back, looking at an island which is nothing but a pile of rubble. Death materializes in front of him. Well, well, what a rousing speech. "Death, weren't you going to Paliopolis?" "Right away, but this will be more entertaining to watch." Death disappears, then materializes behind Pit as the mountain erupts, lava spewing from the top of the volcano. Pit steps back in horror, as he realizes his only chance of turning Simon back might have gone up in flames. At some point, an explanation for why the monsters are hanging out in an active volcano is given that I've totally come up with. A spire in the middle of the mountain starts to form. Don't ask me if this is scientifically plausible, but because large parts of the caves in this mountain were carved out, it's starting to cave in on itself, and a large sinkhole is starting to form. Let's just say the barrier between dimensions altered the terrain a little bit here. Pit sees Eggplant Wizard, grabbing onto a ledge and goes over to help him, since his wings are starting to melt from the lava, like some kind of adult Icarus. Before Eggplant Wizard can even ask why he's helping them, Death appears from behind and knocks them both into the sinkhole. The three are on a rock floating through the lava. The Order of Icarus and the Order of Pluton try to fight Death, as Pit takes an arrow and points it directly towards Eggplant Wizard's neck. Turn Simon back! I can't. I only know the spell to turn someone into an eggplant. I don't care. Just cast it again or something. Panicked, Eggplant Wizard casts the spell onto Simon. Indeed, it turns him back. Upon gaining consciousness, Simon looks around at the inferno around him and sees Eggplant Wizard. This guy again. Eggplant Wizard contemplates whether or not he wants to turn himself back into a human, but realizes he kinda likes being an eggplant. Fly me up, Pit says. Fly me towards Death. That's insane, Eggplant Wizard screams. My wings are half melted. You can't face Death. He's Death. Ha! Death. Simon's signature arrogance is back on show. If he was Death, Trevor would have died before I was born. As far as I'm concerned, he's just a skeleton with an ego. Eggplant Wizard flies the two up, right towards Death. Pit grabs onto him and falls into the volcano. Immediately, Simon joins, not letting Pit sacrifice himself alone. Eggplant Wizard falls onto the beach and immediately has tens of spears pointed at his neck. Pit, why did you help me? Simon yells. I was nothing but mean to you. Being a member of the Order of Icarus means that my duty is to help people. It's what Palutena wants for everybody. I wasn't about to leave you behind. The two fall back onto the rock from before and attack Death as fiercely as possible. Right as he is about to escape, something compels him to stay, as Pit and Simon both have some unknown light emanating from them. Death is defeated, and Pit and Simon both raise their hands toward him as they glow with golden light. Death curses these warriors of light as he is sealed away. Colin tosses the rope down again, and the two just narrowly escape. Back in Paluopolis, Pit and Simon are greeted as heroes. Eggplant Wizard is exiled, and the village chief finds Simon to be more warm than he was before the journey. After a day or so, it's time for Simon to catch the ferry back to the mainland. He looks at the ferry, then looks over at Pit, who's waving goodbye. Simon takes his bag and realizes there's nothing back in England for him. Actually, I think I'll be staying here for a while, Simon decides. You'll need my help to take care of the rest of the monsters, you know. The movie ends as Simon and Pit join together, two monster hunters dedicated to protecting those who are weaker than them from any forces of darkness that might arise. Simon and Pit, the ultimate friendship. Out of all the movies I pitched, Kid Icarus would probably be the hardest to make into an actual script. Well, until we get to the Captain N movie. But Kid Icarus is intended to be an adventure movie that slowly unravels near the end in all-out chaos. This adventure movie structure is what brings Pit and Simon together, since disparate people working together is a big part of what makes adventure movies as a genre. Admittedly, I skipped over most of the actual adventuring, so it does just kind of feel like an action movie, but I hope that won't be what a movie would actually be like if this was made. Pit and Simon's character arcs fit within the theme of dealing with one's past that I've been weaving through this phase. Both Simon and Pit learn that their pasts aren't quite what they thought they were, and they learn to move on together. That's about it for Kid Icarus, so allow me to introduce my mid and post-credit scenes. We hear the voice of a young girl. It should be somewhere here, Mega Man. A jet lands on Paluopolis, and a young super fighting robot exits. Mega Man on the search for monsters. Pit and Simon inform him that they've already taken care of the threat. Mega Man stares for a moment. Well, if it becomes a problem again, don't be afraid to call us. I already used this movie as an excuse to bring two characters together. How about a third? I think it makes sense because both Mega Man and Kid Icarus are about embracing the idea of becoming protectors, and Mega Man would definitely get involved if he noticed the barrier between dimensions shifting like that, since Dr. Light remarked on it in the post-credit scene to Mega Man. Everyone coming together to form a team in the Captain N movie should make a little more sense now that there are more pre-established connections. Post-credit scene. We see a kingdom in flames, completely annihilated. Among the hellish burnt-out castle, we see a massive boar-like demon, Ganon. He's one of Garland's 4 fiends, and we last saw him in Super Mario Bros. A lone warrior clad in green stands to oppose him, shining blade in hand. "You'll never defeat me, Link. And even if you do, I'll just come back once more. This kingdom is mine." The two begin to clash as the screen goes to black. You know those post-credit scenes where it feels like they couldn't think of anything, so they just play a clip from the next movie? This was that. That's a scene from the next movie pitch I have, The Legend of Zelda, which will be the penultimate movie of the phase. The Legend of Zelda probably won't be what you're expecting, so let's get straight into it. As with other pitches, I'll explain more about my process once I've gotten a little more into the thick of it, although it's not going to be until a decent chunk of the way through where I can fully explain what the movie is about and how it relates to the future. So I present, for your own personal consideration, The Legend of Zelda. The movie begins with a young girl sitting on a cliffside, nothing but a bag and a sword at her side. This is Lana, one of the protagonists in the original Captain N the Game Master show. She's admiring her view of the Kingdom of Hyrule, vast and green with reddish rocky mountains in the distance. An arrow zips past her head as she looks back. 3 moblins. She picks up her white sword and fights them off. Clearly she's had lots of experience traveling on her own and fighting beasts like this. She climbs down the mountain and walks forward through a forest. Lana braves the woods in search of something we don't quite know yet. We flash back a bit to a small cave. She's eating soup given to her by an old man. "Thank you for the hospitality," she says. "And the weapon helps too." She motions to her sword. "Hyrule's royal family has done a lot for me," the old man replies. "And it's dangerous to go alone. Are you still sure you're gonna find her?" He said the thing. "Yes," Lana asserts. "I have to find Impa. There's no other option. After Ganon's attack, there's a slim chance she's still alive." "I know, but it's the only thing I can count on right now." Lana leaves as we get a voiceover from her. "Hundreds of years ago, the hero Erdrick founded the Kingdom of Hyrule. Since then, the bravest heroes have always become king and continued Hyrule's battle against the demons who infest this land. One day, my father Link defeated the demon king Ganon, bringing Hyrule to an age of peace with my mother Zelda. The two reigned as king and queen, till Ganon returned." Every pitch has a way of getting weirder and weirder in the Captain NCU. But believe me, I've got a pitch that I think still stays true to what Zelda is, at least in my opinion. The Legend of Zelda on NES is a freeing but isolating experience. You look for small vestiges of civilization and clues in an expansive but lonely kingdom. Every human you encounter in the game, besides Zelda, are hiding out in caves and can only give small bits of help. It almost feels apocalyptic, and I'm gonna be taking that literally. In the first part of the movie, Ganon has already won. This is his world. He's taken over the kingdom and destroyed it all, leaving everyone in constant fear. The only survivor from the royal family is their princess, Lana. I've repeated what I did with the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and made Lana the daughter of Link and Zelda, and the main character of the movie. I also took it a step further by killing Link and Zelda. If you think that's a step too far, okay, fair, but maybe watch a little further, because their roles in the story aren't done. This opening is bleak, and the movie is probably the darkest I will go within this first phase. This is a post-apocalyptic fantasy story. The first act of the movie is slow and somber, and involves Lana searching for Impa, an old hermit who supposedly possesses powerful magic that just might be able to help her. Lana fights monsters and meets survivors. Some hide out in Hyrule's plentiful caves, while others stay in villages, awaiting the day Ganon's forces find and kill them. I mentioned Zelda 1 as the main influence, but some of the villages could take influence from Zelda 2. If we want an error cameo, we can get an error cameo. The people Lana meet seem to have different views on the royal family. Link and Zelda ushered Hyrule into an era of unprecedented peace while they reigned, and many people appreciate and love them. Others see them as cowards who only weaken the kingdom. Lana asks around for rumors, and at some point we see a mysterious cloaked stranger overhear her. The stranger smirks with satisfaction. Eventually, Lana hears about a very suspiciously shaped rock. Completely at her wit's end, she finds it and stares at it for a second. Summoning all her strength, she pushes it aside and looks in to see a fully furnished cave. This is where Impa is residing. The cave is small yet homey, with all kinds of luxurious furnishings all over it. She looks around, and her attention is drawn to a cellar door under the floor mat. She's about to investigate when she's interrupted by an old woman pointing a crossbow at her. "Stop! Wait, is that you, Lana?" Impa runs over to Lana, putting her crossbow aside and giving her a big hug, much to Lana's confusion. "You're alive, you're alive! Wait, did anyone follow you here?" "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "Did anyone follow you?" No. Impa breathed a sigh of relief. "I'm Impa. I have a lot of explaining to do. Follow me, dearie." Impa takes Lana down a cellar, unlocks an iron door, and proceeds through a dark cave. "When the royal family was still around, I was one of Zelda's most trusted advisors," Impa explains. "You don't know me, but I know a great deal about you, Lana. I even changed your diapers when you were little," she laughs. Impa is wise beyond her years and always seems to know more than she's letting on. Lana can't help but be a bit suspicious of her. Impa opens a heavily locked chest. Inside is a golden, beaming triangle of light. Lana can hardly look at it for more than a second or two because of the intensity of the glow. "This is the Triforce of Wisdom. Or what's left of it, at least," Impa narrates. 1,000 years ago, the great hero Erdrick defeated the Demon Lord. As a reward, the gods granted him with the Triforce of Wisdom, an artifact that would bring Hyrule peace for years to come. But as with all things, its power fades. As the centuries went by, Hyrule was attacked by the demons who lurked in the shadows in a never-ending struggle. Hyrule speaks of a legend that one day a hero will be able to revitalize the Triforce's power and bring Hyrule to a new age of peace. He will be called the Warrior of Light. "I'm familiar with the legend," Lana says. "Throughout the ages, many people have tried to claim the title of Warrior of Light, but the power's not manifested in anyone so far. Even my father wasn't a Warrior of Light. Lana, I'm glad you're safe. I really am. But you cannot leave." "What?" "You'll stay with me and guard this place. The Triforce is all that we have left. If this is gone, then all hope will be lost." Impa explains something huge. Hyrule is stuck in a time loop. The past century always repeats over and over again, and holding the Triforce allows her to remember it. Impa has seen hundreds of time loops, and the royal family dies each and every time. It always goes one way. A peasant boy named Link defeats Ganon and becomes king. Then he marries Zelda, the two raise Lana, and turn their attention to making Hyrule a more beautiful and prosperous place. A court magician, wanting to take Hyrule back to its older days, revives Ganon, seeking war and glory for Hyrule. But Ganon comes back stronger than he can possibly imagine, and destroys the royal family. This is a post-apocalypse, time loop, fantasy story. Impa is broken. She's tried to save the world over and over again, but has been unsuccessful every single time. She remembers the centuries of pain and has long since decided her fate is to guard the Triforce, hoping that one day it might change. Lana is shaken up, but is determined that they have to win against Ganon. If they go back in time, maybe it just might be different. The two argue, with Lana being fiercely determined to see her own point through, despite the trauma Impa has endured. Eventually, the two reach a standstill and just sit for a moment. "Missy, do you want me to make us tea or something?" Suddenly, the entire room crumbles, as crowds of knights storm into the building. "I thought no one followed you!" Impa yells. The two fight groups of knights, but are quickly overpowered. These are Darknuts. They used to be elite soldiers for Hyrule, but defected to Ganon. They all have experience fighting wars in the past, and were upset when Link and Zelda made steps to pacify Hyrule. Their anger led them to Ganon. A knight takes the Triforce of Wisdom, and the other knights lead Impa and Lana up the cellar. This is about the worst thing that could have possibly happened. Ganon is standing right in Impa's cove. He's holding the severed head of the man from the village that led Lana to find her. Oh my god, the bastard's killed Ever! Now, Ganon is often seen with a trident as his main weapon in the classic games, but that's a development that happened in A Link to the Past. So instead he has a cool dark blade or something. "Impa, Impa," Ganon says. "You've eluded me for too long. Garland gave me command over this century, and as long as I have it, I'll do what I want with this kingdom." The Darknuts stab Impa. As they do this, Ganon takes the Triforce of Wisdom and crushes it in his hand. Impa's last hope is gone. "Lana," Impa says, "please, keep fighting. I've seen you through countless ages, and every time, you've always been the bravest, most determined girl I know. I'm sorry I couldn't have been there for you more." Lana screams in desperation, kicking the Darknuts off of her. She swings her blade at Ganon, and the two clash swords. Lana is enveloped in golden light, and as they fight, the scenery changes suddenly and rapidly. An open field, a cave, a castle courtyard. Ganon suddenly stops fighting and looks around. "Enjoy yourself, princess." Ganon kicks Lana away and disappears, leaving her stranded in time. Lana panics as she looks around. She's trapped in an underground cave of some kind. Two spears point to her neck. "Die, human!" Two fish people point spears at her as Lana notices where she is. The city of the Zora. An underground cavernous city inhabited by fish creatures called Zora. She flashes back, or rather forward, to her childhood, and we get a short scene where she remembers Link and Zelda meeting with the king of the Zora and negotiating treaties. Hyruleans and Zora have a legacy of years and years of war, which Link and Zelda were the first to try and rectify. Zelda in particular is an expert at negotiation, seeing and understanding the Zora people with kindness and respect. This is the first time we see both characters, and I want them to be very likable. This is a Zelda movie, as easy as it is to forget. Link is older than the Link we're used to, but is still in his green tunic instead of a regal robe. "Stop! She's only a child!" An older Zora comes by, clearly some kind of military captain. And look at her garb, she's clearly a traveler. Just take her prisoner." The Zoras grunt but agree to this terms, and lead Lana through the city. Through context clues, we find out that Lana and Ganon's clashes somehow sent Lana through time. She's in the distant past, when Hyrule was at war with the Zora Kingdom. I should note that the Zora were monsters in The Legend of Zelda. They didn't get portrayed as humanoids until Ocarina of Time. But the concept of having a race of monsters turn out to be more thinking and feeling is a common fantasy trope, so I think it's okay to implement. Lana hasn't paid much attention to the Zora before, but learns to empathize with them by seeing their cities when they're in all-out war with Hyrule. The Zoras have a deep resentment towards humans, but conduct themselves with a degree of respect towards her. She's put in prison, and has a moment to think about where to go from here. One thing's for sure, she will keep on fighting. I've mentioned this before, but a theme of this phase is confronting your past. This comes to an absolute boiling point in both The Legend of Zelda and Captain N the Final Fantasy, because people are literally time traveling to the past. There's also the additional layer that Hyrule and their royal family have a dark past, which Lana is forced to confront on her journey to try and stop Ganon. Lana is gonna be put through so much shit in this movie. After a good while of being accustomed to the Zora, a full-scale invasion from Hyrule begins. The Zoras have treated Lana well, but she knows how this ends. Hyrule is using bows and artillery to attack the city, and eventually Lana is pierced through the heart by an arrow. Lana falls to the ground, dead. Fade to black. Link scopes out a field from his vantage point on a cliffside. He turns around as a group of monsters emerge from the ground. They're levers, terrifying worm-like enemies. Link defeats them and sets off on his quest. Link is young, and through context clues we figure out that this is his original adventure to defeat Ganon. This section is similar to the opening, only from the perspective of Link instead of Lana. The kingdom is safer than Lana's time period, but it's still broken in many ways. Eventually, Link finds a hollowed out dead tree. He braces himself, knowing what's in store for him, but before he can enter the dungeon, someone interrupts him. It's Lana. Lana introduces herself as an ally of the royal family, and decides to help out Link on his quest. Link isn't sure what to make of it, but goes with her, not knowing her true origins. He's equally as confused as the audience. Lana is wearing a cloak and gloves over her usual outfit. Hope that doesn't come into play later. The two explore, and Lana acts almost like a mentor to Link. Since we no longer see the story primarily from Lana's perspective, there's an element of mystery as to what actually happened and what their motives are. However, we do find out that this dungeon is supposedly the site of the Triforce of Wisdom, and Link is on the search for it. They solve puzzles, fight monsters and Darknuts, and eventually they defeat the dragon Gleeok after a fierce battle. During the battle, part of Lana's glove was burned off, and we see a golden triangle on her hand. They both find a pedestal with nothing on it. According to the stories, the Triforce of Wisdom was supposed to be here, Link remarks. Yes, well, we have to keep searching, Lana says. Link is confused, but in the end, he's glad to have someone accompanying him on his otherwise lonely adventure. The two weary travelers are camping out for the night. Link starts to open up to Lana. He explains how he came from a military family and wants to bring peace to Hyrule to make up for his family's atrocities. Lana feels hurt that she can't tell Link the truth. She decides to say what she can. Link, I need to be honest. I'm not from here. She takes off her glove and raises her hand. But I think the Triforce of Wisdom chose me. Link stares for a second. Have you met Impa yet? After the two talk, Lana finds out that Impa is still in contact with the royal family in this timeline, and that she has met Link. She realizes then and there that they need to go to Hyrule's royal castle first thing in the morning. The two go to sleep as Lana enjoys her first moment of peace in a long time. This is a mild bit of spoilers for the next movie, but I've realized that all three of my movies in this video have scenes where people are by a campfire, specifically a campfire and trauma dumping. I'm gonna try to avoid that in future movie pitches. Impa greets Lana and Link. All of Impa's memories of the previous timelines have been erased. After what happened with the Triforce of Wisdom, time has reset. She remarks that Lana reminds her of Zelda. Lana awkwardly smiles. Link explains the situation, and Impa remarks on the triangle on Lana's hand. My dear, that symbol. It means the Triforce has chosen you. Lana and Link are astonished. Does that mean she's the Warrior of Light? Link asks. Impa says she doesn't know, but the two decide that they need to go defeat Ganon now. Lana feels conflicted. She knows that Ganon will always rise after his defeat, and she doesn't know how to defeat him. But she has to fight him anyways, cause she's out of options right now. Link is happy. Well, he thought he might have been the hero the legend spoke of. He is just as happy to be an assist. It can't be fatherly pride he's feeling, cause he doesn't know he's Lana's father, but it does feel like some kind of pride. The Warrior of Light prophecy is just a legend. No one knows what it actually means, but for now, they set their sights to Death Mountain, Ganon's hideout. After walking through a creepy graveyard and avoiding falling rocks, Link and Lana are faced with an army of Zora. They work for Ganon. Lana is horrified. Zora joining with Ganon seems contradictory, considering Ganon wants to bring Hyrule back to its warlike past. But this group of Zora still remembers Hyrule's sins, and Ganon has made them false promises that he'd treat them better than Hyrule did. This whole Zora plotline, not the most fleshed out thing, but I want there to be a sense that defeating Ganon isn't the end for Hyrule. There's still a lot of work to be done, and Hyrule is a complicated place. Link and Zelda try to bring peace in more ways than just defeating evil. Makes a good sequel setup too. Lana and Link fight through the Zora, careful not to kill anyone, then go to Ganon's lair until they are face to face with the demon fiend himself. Zelda is close by. Link and Lana fight Ganon. This time he isn't using his time manipulation powers. After fighting a bit, Ganon reveals the truth about everything to Link, and how Lana was his daughter. Link starts to put the pieces together, and is shaken for a minute, but quickly regains his composure. He stares defiantly at Ganon, with nothing but acceptance and pride. He sees right through Ganon's petty attempt to drive the two apart. Lana smiles. Link, get the princess. I'll deal with Ganon. Link runs to Zelda, and we see a cute moment where they meet for the first time. Lana looks to Ganon with confidence. Ganon, you can't win here. Not against a warrior of light. Ha! Foolish girl. Do you really believe that all it takes to defeat me is one warrior of light? The power chaos bestowed upon me can't be stripped away that easily. The two fight, with Lana clearly outpaced. Link is running to help when Ganon's power clearly starts to overtake him. He is enveloped in a red light, which makes him bigger and more animalistic and aggressive. It's reminiscent of the beast form Dracula took at the end of Castlevania. He stabs Lana through the chest, when suddenly she's enveloped in a golden light, just barely keeping her alive. She can feel a godlike power within her, and we flash back to the moment where she died. She was reincarnated with all her memories, because the Triforce of Wisdom awoke within her. She could tell this power could be almost limitless, but she's not alone. There's other pieces to this puzzle. Ganon? You might be right, but I think I know where to find more Warriors of Light. The light is blinding, and the Triforce's power envelops everything in the room. As this happens, Lana seemingly disappears. Link looks to this monstrous form of Ganon with rage in his eyes. There's a montage of all of Link and Zelda's memories from a previous timeline. Whether Link truly remembers everything is left up to audience's interpretation, but one thing is clear. The golden power has caused him to remember just enough to know the true extent of Ganon's evil. Link, Ganon says, understanding exactly what has just happened. This whole century and everything that happens in it is mine. All of it I control, and I am going to use this power to make your life a living hell. Link raises his sword. I will fight you for as long as I need to. If going through hell is what saves my daughter, then that means nothing to me. They clash as the screen goes black. There's a pause that's just long enough that the audience begins to question if the movie has just cut out. But before they can leave their seats, Lana wakes up. She's in pain and bleeding from her side. She's on a deserted island, right at the bottom of a valley of dried up volcanic rock. She feels the sea breeze, looks at her surroundings and smiles. The tiniest sliver of hope just entered her life. The end. This was a lot. The Legend of Zelda is the first pitch fully set in the parallel dimension to Earth. It is a fantasy world, ravaged by demons, and one dark god who controls time, chaos. Even then, there's so many unanswered questions about this world and its lore that my movie couldn't even touch on. This concept feels like a full-on fantasy epic, and it goes to some of the darkest places this universe has gone so far. Once Captain N the Final Fantasy happens, I do expect it might be a bit lighter, cause there's gonna be an Avengers-like team to face Garland. Still, it will be tough, and The Legend of Zelda has made odds seem almost impossible. Lana is stranded on an island off the coast of Greece, and Link is locked in an eternal battle with Ganon. The Legend of Zelda has a little bit of Dragon Warrior influence in it too, with mentions of Erdrick, the protagonist of Dragon Warrior 3. And yes, I have to call it Dragon Warrior and not Dragon Quest. He was referenced a lot in Dragon Warrior 1, and that's why he's spoken of in such legendary terms here. I'm not actually allowed to use content from Dragon Warrior 3. Early Dragon Warrior games typically ended with the hero becoming king of his own kingdom, which serves as the inspiration for why Link is king of Hyrule. Dragon Warrior was pushed heavily by Nintendo in the 80s, and it was actually in Captain N a lot, so I think it kinda gotta be in my universe, but I don't have any plans for a solo movie. Literally, because I'm not allowed to make plans for a solo movie. I don't think everything in my Legend of Zelda pitch works super cleanly. The rules around the Warrior of Light thing and that time loop, the Triforce memory retention are built out of sticks and mud. But I'm proud of what I wrote, and I think it feels powerful while being close enough to Zelda 1. I hope you enjoyed coming along on this ride with me. Now, I don't have to talk about the future in abstract terms anymore, because my next pitch is the conclusion to this phase, where Captain N and the rest of the Warriors of Light will face Garland and the Four Fiends. But first, the post and mid credit scenes. Years in the past, we see some castle destroyed. Seemingly, it's Hyrule, but this castle looks different. Intense, hurricane-like winds rage throughout the land. Blowing in the wind is a missing poster, depicting a knight. Missing, Garland the Brave. The post-credit scene starts with footage of the game Baldur's Gate 3 being played on a brand new Sega console. It pans out to reveal Kevin playing video games. He pauses, showing that his avatar is named Captain N. He speaks. What the fuck is this? We see him pull out his phone and immediately seek Reddit medical advice for the weird, glowing triangle that just appeared on his hand. Lana, Kevin Mario, Simon Belmont, Mega Man, and Pit will return in Captain N the Final Fantasy. That was all so much work. This is already longer than my previous script. I don't even have the Avengers-like movie yet. Appreciate everyone watching and supporting me, and if you could share the video, I'd appreciate it too. Blah blah blah. I've got a lot of shit to write now, but I'm having fun, so it's okay. Captain N the Final Fantasy begins with Kevin Mario in a graduation dress and cap. After getting a few photos done, he hangs around at a school with his friends Stacy, Julius, and Romeo. Despite being on the cusp of a major milestone, he evidently doesn't have his driver's license yet, because he's waiting for his parents to pick him up. He says goodbye to his friends and hops in a van with Super Mario Bros. Plumbing and Extermination written on the side, with Extermination crossed out. He greets his family, Pauline, Mario, and Luigi, who are nothing but proud of him, as the four head to a restaurant to celebrate. Also Toad. Toad is there. Mario goes on a rant about the declining quality of Peter Pepper's family restaurant as the van drives off. Okay Mario, that's enough, Pauline interrupts. Now Kevin, we're all very proud of you for your accomplishments, and you should be too. But if you're gonna get a tattoo, you have to tell us, okay? A tattoo? Kevin questions. He looks at the golden triangle on his right hand. Oh, this? No, it's not a tattoo. I don't know what it is. It just kinda appeared on my hand yesterday. Ha! Bullshit! Mario laughs. Kevin, who made his last full appearance in Super Mario Bros., the first movie of the phase, is one of the main characters in Captain N the Final Fantasy. He is Captain N after all, so I want to have the opening show a bit about what he's been up to since the last movie. He's still living his life easy in Brooklyn with his family and Toad, who just kinda showed up. After this opening, we cut to Paluopolis, the island last seen in Kid Icarus, where Simon and Pit are now residing. So that monster, he Said he was from another dimension? Simon and Pit are seated at a table, talking to Mega Man, Roll, and Dr. Light. Roll has a notebook and is writing down the story Simon and Pit are relaying about how they defeated Death and Medusa. The Mega Man crew are very interested. Well, the story adds up with the science, Light remarks. We should investigate, says Mega Man. Can either of you tell us where to find this island? He asks Simon and Pit. A day's travel west by boat, Pit states. Dr. Light goes to Simon and Pit. Thank you for your help, gentlemen. We'll fly over there on a jet and inform you if there's any more problems. It takes cooperation to defend humanity. The jet soars off towards the island as we cut to the last protagonist we haven't checked up on yet, Lana. She's stranded on a deserted island. As a quick refresher, this island was where Death, Medusa, and the monsters were hiding out in Kid Icarus. It's a spot where the barrier between dimensions is the weakest, which is why Lana was transported here. But she's been badly injured by Ganon, and is starting to worry she might not be able to make it. She's scrounging up her last bit of food as a jet lands next to her. Mega Man, Roll, and Dr. Light help her up as she faints. Cut to a few minutes later. Lana is being treated in the jet by Roll as Mega Man walks in with Simon and Pit. I'm telling you, there's no way she's human if she went through that portal, Simon asserts. Pit, get some garlic, she might be a vampire. Simon, I don't think that's gonna... With a cough, Lana wakes up. She's bloody, but has been wrapped up with bandages. She adjusts her eyes to her surroundings and looks at Simon and Pit. You two, what's that symbol on your hands? Warily, Simon and Pit show Lana the Triforce marks on their right hands. Lana raises her own hand. She also bears the mark. My name is Lana. I'm from another world. I think you two can help me. Both of our worlds are in danger. Suddenly, the scene cuts back to Lana's homeland. The mountains are vast, expansive, and oddly crystalline, unlike how we've seen them in The Legend of Zelda. Instead of their reddish look, they gleam with bright, white light that reflects sunlight like the moon. Inside the caverns are a colony of dwarves, and we follow the view of one of them. He hears some kind of crash, and looks outside to see the world in ruins. He panics as he sees a fortress of death, flying in the sky and smiting the kingdom with mighty energy. The dwarf flees back into the cave as we see the inside of the fortress. It's captained by a terrifying blue, four-headed dragon, Tiamat. He's like a Hydra but with one more head. He's one of Garland's fiends, and just as Ganon terrorized one century, Tiamat is terrorizing this century, destroying everything in sight with his powerful weapon. In a flash of red light, a knight in black armor appears next to him. Having fun, Tiamat. It's Garland, the avatar of chaos, and the one responsible for giving Bowser, Ganon, and Tiamat their powers. What are you pestering me for? Tiamat asks. It's urgent. I would call a meeting, but Ganon is busy now. I think the Warriors of Light have assembled. What? Tiamat growls. Where are they? I will take care of it right away, Garland assures him. And there's no need to be afraid. Most of them are just children anyways. Their heads will roll before they can do anything to harm either of us. Just a quick heads up. So, the terms and names I use from Final Fantasy have to come from the original NES Final Fantasy, the English edition translations of the names. That's just how it has to work with the concept of the cinematic universe I'm using here. But there are a few where I did not know that the original translations were different from the GBA version, which is the version of Final Fantasy I originally played, and I realized while playing the NES version to get footage I made a few mistakes. The two specific examples are the Warrior of Light and the Flying Fortress. The term in the NES version is actually Light Warrior, probably just to save on space. I think Warrior of Light sounds cool and is way better, so I'm just gonna go with it anyways. And then there's the Flying Fortress, which is the place Tiamat lives in. The term in the NES version was flying castle. They're just synonyms. I don't care. Flying fortress sounds cooler. We're calling it Flying Fortress, even though these technically break my rules. We cut back to the jet, as Lana explains the situation to Mega Man, Light, Roll, Simon, and Pit. They're all astonished. They didn't realize the other world was populated by human civilizations of its own. A lot seems to add up now that they realize this. So you think we're the only ones who could save the world, or worlds? Pit asks. I think so. Someone or something has chosen to stand up to chaos, says Lana confidently. Pit looks down at his hand. A warrior of light. Guess this was my destiny all along. I don't know what being a warrior of light entails, Lana explains. But Garland is out there and he's not going to stop until everything is his. Well, I'm not a warrior of light, but I can help, Mega Man declares. It sounds like we need to track down whoever else has the mark. I think I might know where to look. Simon pulls out his phone. He shows the others his screen. It's a Reddit post from a medical advice subreddit. The post says, "Help, what's this weird yellow triangle that appeared on my hand?" The Marios drive back home through the streets of Brooklyn. Peter Pepper's not doing too hot, eh, Mario? Luigi asks. Yeah, ever since his wife left him. Kevin complains to his mom while on his phone. This weird guy from England keeps trying to ask for my location on Reddit. Maybe you should just block him. The family drives home, only to see a knight cloaked in dark armor in front of their home. Hey, off the road! Mario yells. Garland ignores him and slashes his blade at their home. After one powerful strike, the base of their house starts to crumble. Mario, Luigi, and Kevin urgently exit their vehicle. So you're the ones who defeated Bowser. Garland runs towards their car and slashes it cleanly in two. Pauline and Toad jump out of the vehicle, and Toad goes to run for help. Mario and Luigi try their best to fend off Garland. They hit him with wrenches, try to jump at him, box him, all to no avail. Garland knocks Mario and Luigi away, and grabs Kevin by the throat, about to stab him, when he's hit on the head by a brick. It doesn't hurt him, but does get his attention, and he throws Kevin to the ground. Garland looks back at an angry mob. No one messes with the Marios! A man yells. The Mario brothers have a fan base so loyal, they're here to defend them from Garland's attack. Garland throws a fireball, causing chaos among their ranks, and the group scatters from the inferno, some helping those on fire while others look for things to throw at Garland. Garland throws a lightning bolt at the Mario household, completely demolishing it at the base. Kevin screams in anguish as he sees his home destroyed in front of his eyes. Mario and Luigi try their best to fend off Garland. Garland clearly has the advantage, but is annoyed by how long the process is taking. He only has 10 minutes before he'll need to return to his own world. We cut to the inside of Dr. Light's jet. Sorry for the pit stop, Roll says. But when there's a monster we detect, we can't just let it go. Nah, it's fine, Simon says. I've always wanted to go to the Big Apple. Besides, I'm something of a monster hunter myself. Garland is about to slash both Mario and Luigi across the chest when a blast of ice flies at him. He deflects it with his sword. It's Mega Man. Frustrated, Garland grabs Mario and Luigi, the closest people to Kevin, and disappears into a red portal. Mega Man goes to help people as Kevin cries and hugs his mother. He looks over at the rubble that was once his house, and sees his game console smashed in pieces. Not the most important part of what has happened, but a detail to note. Ah, damn it! Simon says as he exits the jet. Where'd the monster go? Pit steps out and sees Kevin right away. Lana goes up to Kevin and Pauline. Hey, I'm sorry for what happened there. I know this is an odd question, but when did you get that mark in your arm? I think it might mean something. Lana raises her arm to show her mark, while Simon and Pit do the same. Kevin stares, surprised. Can we talk somewhere? The whole group, Kevin, Pauline, Toad, Dr. Light, Mega Man, Roll, Lana, Simon, and Pit, all crowd around a table in a busy coffee shop. The workers know Kevin and Pauline so well because they're Marios that they don't question why a mushroom man, a scientist, 2 robots, a princess, angel, and monster hunter are all at a coffee shop. You know, kid, you ought to check your messages more often, Simon says. Kevin is confused. To be clear, the whole Reddit medical advice plotline is for joke purposes. I had intended that to be the sole reason the rest of the Warriors of Light meet, but then I realized that they could just meet because of Mega Man's monster detector. I could go back and change that earlier post-credit scene so that it's not just a joke, but cinematic universes change plans all the time, and I feel like this is something that would realistically happen. Lana once again explains the situation to Kevin. He's amazed. There's a whole world of magic out there, and he's a part of it, but he doesn't have time to get caught up in the wonder. Kevin explains his history with the other world. Mega Man, Roll, and Dr. Light had recognized him before since the story of him saving New York was so famous. Look, Lana, if there's a way for me to rescue my dad and uncle, I'll do anything. Just tell me how to defeat this Garland guy. I don't know, Lana admits, but the 4 of us are the only ones who can save both of our worlds. We should head back to the island. The barrier between dimensions is slimmer there. If you're looking for somewhere we can go between dimensions, I think I have the spot, says Kevin. Kevin leads the group in the sewers. Here, this spot right here. Anytime Bowser attacked us, he always went through here. Lana's hand starts to glow. She raises it, and the others also realize their hands are glowing. Everyone, join me. Slowly the others raise their hand as they glow with the power of the Triforce. Kevin, Pit, Simon, Toad. Not you, Toad. The 4 warriors hold their hands forward, and just when it seems like nothing's happening, a golden portal starts to fade into existence. The 4 concentrate, and it starts to swirl and form more and more. This is their way out. Roll and Dr. Light tell Mega Man he'll have to go alone. He can help out the Warriors of Light with his immense power, while they keep the lab safe. Mega Man gladly accepts the responsibility of protecting the world. Pauline is worried for Kevin, but knows he's destined for great things. I can't go with you, my son, she says, but promise me you'll be safe. I can't bear to lose 3 people today. You won't lose anyone today, Mom, Kevin says. I love you. I love you too, she looks at Lana. If anything happens to my boy Kevin, Garland will be the least of your worries. Lana smiles awkwardly. After their final goodbyes, the group enters the portal and prepares to face Garland, Chaos, and whatever else might come their way. So I think I've had to explain this movie a lot less than the others because this is what they've all been building up to. The big crossover movie. The Avengers of the Captain NCU, and a loose adaptation of Final Fantasy. Although, since I'm only allowed to use content from the original Final Fantasy, there is gonna be a lot of super recognizable things I'm not allowed to use. Like, I'm not allowed to use chocobos. At all. The protagonists of the movie don't have much of a connection yet, but hopefully it makes sense why they're all working together. I want there to be this whimsical, adventurous feel once the group arrives in the other world, and the group will all become friends in the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. We cut to Garland, jumping through time with Mario and Luigi in his arms. The 2 plumbers break free, and before Garland can notice and go back to get them, they run away, finding themselves in a small village made up of mushroom-shaped houses. They hide as Garland walks through the village, destroying buildings and flinging fire and destruction. Toads run out of their houses for safety. Mario and Luigi run and hide in a bush. They look at each other, understanding that they need to find a way out of there fast. Luckily for them, Garland eventually disappears. Mario and Luigi exit and look to the village. Seemingly they're saved. Mario walks up to a Toad and asks where they are. I still haven't quite decided what Toad voices sound like yet. The Mushroom Kingdom, of course. We cut to a small cave. A squirrel is being roasted over an open fire. The camera pans out, showing a scaly hand holding the stick. A kingdomless and penniless Bowser. Garland appears next to him, and he jumps in surprise. Bowser, how'd you like to get back into my good graces? If this were a real movie, it would run the risk of being overstuffed, but there's a Bowser subplot for Mario and Luigi to deal with. Bowser is more of a comedy antagonist, so it's not as serious, and I figure it could be a smaller, lighter subplot for when more serious things happen to the Warriors of Light. Lana, Mega Man, Kevin, Pit, and Simon appear in a dark cave. For those of you keeping track, this is the 4th Captain NCU movie with the cave section. I haven't even introduced Metroid yet. The party looks around when they are suddenly attacked by giant snakes that emerge from the walls. They fight, and after an action sequence where everyone managed to show off what they're capable of, they're interrupted by a dwarf. "Come with me, humans," he says. Nervously, the party goes along with him through the cave. They reach a dwarf settlement, a complex system of tunnels they settled in. The dwarves are about as stereotypically fantasy as you can imagine a dwarf being. Thick beards, tools, and miners' get-ups. "We must not be in Hyrule," Lana silently remarks. "I've never seen a dwarf colony before." "Everyone!" the dwarf shouts. "Look who have come to our domain!" Every dwarf in the colony immediately stops what they're doing to stare at the heroes. They prepare for the worst. "Humans! Hooray!" The dwarves chant over and over again. "Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!" "My name is Narek," the dwarf states. "I'm the mayor of Juragar, last stronghold of the dwarves. We usually don't get very many humans around here. What are your names?" The 4 heroes introduce themselves, and he heartily shakes their hands. "Please, join us in celebration." Lana looks around at the other warriors, skeptical, but she figures that being friendly is the cleanest way to learn about where or when they are. She agrees. Cut to a massive celebration. Everyone in the colony, including the heroes, are gathered around a table feasting. Narek insists that everyone eats, including Mega Man, who is politely handing his food to Simon. Narek hands everyone big mugs of ale. "I don't think I can drink this, I'm only 18, Kevin says. Simon scoffs. "Americans." Lana tries to get Narek's attention, and to ask them where they are. He says the name of the kingdom, Cornelia, but insists they eat before talking about business like that. Lana sees that everyone else in the party is gladly eating, talking, and partying, so she goes along with it, taking a big bite out of a drumstick. After an hour or so, everyone is full from their meals. Lana enjoyed herself, but now she wants answers. "Look, Narek, I appreciate the meal, but could you please tell us what's going on? You must be travelers. You can't go through Cornelia in the state it's in now." The warriors are confused, so Narek simply gets up and motions for them to follow him. He shows them an exit leading out of the cave, and everyone is astonished at what they're seeing. The outside is a burning wasteland, with a vast fortress in the sky above. It's a dark, somber night, but brightly lit with fire in the distance, and you can hardly see the stars with all the smoke in the air. The wind outside is so strong, it's almost unbearable to stand in. We dwarves were once a proud, strong people, but we lost our home in the Elf Wars long ago, and those of us who are still left have resigned themselves to live in the caves. It turned out to be a blessing once the Flying Fortress arrived. Everything that has ever been in Cornelia belongs to that fiend now. Narek motions to the sky. "That's insane," Pit says. "You're just giving up on your people?" "Ah, my boy, it's not so simple," Narek says. "No one who's tried to defeat the dragon has lived to tell their tale. We're just gonna stay here till our food and liquor runs out." "The dragon?" Lana asks. "His name is Tiamat." "Tiamat like the D&D character?" Kevin asks. "You know him." Lana turns towards Kevin. "Oh, not really." "Well, if he's that powerful," Lana realizes, "he must be our way to Garland. If you want to die trying to fight that beast, by all means try," Narek says. "But no one's even managed to reach his fortress." Simon groans. "If only we still had the wings of Pegasus." "Yeah," Pit says, deep in contemplation. But please, it's late. We don't have much space, but there's a campfire you folks can stay at for the night, Narek insists. So, Captain N the Final Fantasy should feel like a D&D campaign in movie format, at least with the party composition and fantasy elements. That's because that was basically the premise of the original Final Fantasy game. It felt like a wild, high fantasy adventure and was heavily inspired by D&D, which seemed like a lot of fun for a crossover movie in a cinematic universe format. I've also captured one very distinct thing from D&D, your DM having very bad accents for every character. This scene is the classic party around the campfire. The Warriors of Light plus Mega Man all sit around as Kevin starts a conversation by asking everyone where they're from. The party starts to talk and mingle, sharing their stories and talking about themselves. Everyone starts to warm up to each other, and a dynamic starts to form, even if it's a little shaky for now. So should we have a party name? Kevin asks. Isn't the Warriors of Light our name? Simon asks. That's not very inclusive, Pit motions to Mega Man. After a bit of back and forth, Kevin comes up with something. How about the Game Masters? He says it's from Dungeons and Dragons, and he's always found it cool. Feels like they're in a D&D game anyway, so they might as well. You're gonna have to explain to me what Dungeons and Dragons is, Pit admits. It's hard to convey this, but Kevin is the audience's stand-in. When we follow this story through his perspective, it does kind of feel like he was just sucked into a video game. He doesn't have a ton of powers or abilities like the other members of the Game Masters, but Kevin does have knowledge on fantasy games, which makes him able to formulate ways to move forward and emerge as the group's de facto leader, and to make the D&D jokes. So yeah, there was a lore reason for Kevin to have been playing Baldur's Gate 3. The Reddit post-credit scene makes sense now. As the night progresses, most of the party are sleeping, but Lana, restless, stares outside. Kevin sees her and sits next to her. Hey, Lana, is it? Mind if I sit here? Kevin noticed Lana was quiet back at the campfire and asks her about herself a little. Lana starts to warm up to him as she starts to talk about how she hasn't had a moment to herself for a while. Because of Garland, her home is gone and she doesn't even know if her father is alive or dead. I know that feeling, Kevin says. We just have to push past it, Lana says. Keep moving on forward. Well, yeah, but we're still kids. We can't be expected to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Before all this happened, I might have agreed with you. One of Lana's most defining character traits is her determination, and a desire to fight for a better world which was instilled in her by her parents. But there's another side to it. She tends to bottle up her feelings, rationalizing that once things are better, then she can go back to being human again. Through her budding friendship with Kevin, Lana will learn to slow down and form connections with others. By the end of the movie, the Game Masters should truly be like family to each other. Here's this thing from my world I think you might enjoy, Lana, Kevin says. Dungeons and Dragons? She asks. Therapy? The next morning, the party all wakes up and finds themselves at a loss for how to go forward. That's when Narek admits that there is one way they might be able to reach the Flying Fortress, but it's dangerous. No one's been able to use it thus far. Across the wastelands, there's a place called Lephane. The Lephanes were the original creators of the Flying Fortress, and somewhere among their library is a flight spell called Zoom. If someone can find it and cast it, they just might be able to reach the fortress. Out of options, the Game Masters decide to find Lephane. Before they go, Narek tells them the winds will sweep them away if they're not prepared, so he hands them special dwarf armor. This is the obligatory fanservice moment, because what they all wear resembles the designs of the classes from the original Final Fantasy. Black Mage, White Mage, Fighter, Thief, Black Belt, etc. All suited up, they say farewell to the dwarves and head across the wasteland. We cut to Lana's father, Link. He's still fighting against one of the four fiends, Ganon. He holds his sword with determination in the middle of a castle, hiding behind a pillar to catch his breath as an enraged Ganon looks for him. It's clear that at this point, the power of chaos has taken over, and Ganon can't act logically. Link runs out from the pillar and attacks, to no avail. Their struggle continues. We get a montage of the Game Masters as they wander through a wasteland, fighting monsters along the way. Eventually, they reach the ruins of a complex city, Lefane. Everyone explores Lefane a bit until Pit finds an old tome. To everyone's surprise, he's able to read it. It was a language he was taught as a kid. He was told it was the language the gods speak. Clearly, there's some connection between the ancient Lefanes and the culture he comes from. Lana rationalizes that there must be some connection because his island was so close to the barrier between dimensions. In any case, Pit reads the instructions and continually tries to teach himself the spell. Everyone sits by as Pit reads it over and over again, but all of a sudden, he starts to slowly rise up and he bumps his head on the ceiling. This is the spell they need, alright. Pit learns Zoom. The name Zoom does come from Dragon Warrior. If the float spell from Final Fantasy had existed in the first game, I would be using that instead. Pit grabs everyone and sets his sights on the flying fortress, but because of their heavy armor, they're too weighed down to fly. Everyone leaves their game-accurate garb aside, and Pit grabs onto everyone, fully spreading out his wings. They take off. It's difficult due to Tiamat's strong winds, but Pit is eventually able to make his way onto the flying fortress, and everyone finds themselves within the machine. Cue the Exploring the Death Star section. The group sneaks through the flying fortress, trying to find anything they can use to fight Garland or defeat Tiamat if need be. Pit finds out that this flying fortress is actually a spaceship, suggesting the Lefanes were once a spacefaring civilization. A bit of background information. The original Final Fantasy had a dungeon called the Flying Fortress, where you fight Tiamat. In that game, it was definitely supposed to be set in space, which was lost in further re-releases of the game. After this first phase, the Captain NCU is gonna lean further into sci-fi, which is a setup by this revelation, and that's part of the reason I included Tiamat as a villain. In addition to the D&D jokes, the group finds the source of the terrifying power of the Flying Fortress, a machine called the War Mech. Now they get to have a room named after them in A Link to the Past. Before Mega Man can attempt to destroy it, an alarm sounds, and the group is captured by machines. They are brought straight to Tiamat, who stares at them with rage in his eyes. "Garland should have taken care of you," he hisses. But first, back to Mario and Luigi. They're walking through a little toad village when they're accosted by a really hot turtle woman with lipstick and a dress. It is totally not Bowser in drag. She asks them if they can help her with some plumbing work. Mario and Luigi look at each other. They have no other options and agree to the Turtle Lady's proposition. The Turtle Lady leads them to a suspiciously empty house. She walks over to a weirdly shaped pipe, and Mario and Luigi begin working on it. As they fix the pipe, they suddenly both turn it directly towards the Turtle Lady as a bomb flies out. Turtle Lady dodges, showing that it was Bowser the whole time. Mario and Luigi grab Bowser and threaten to tell the village about him. "No, please," Bowser begs. "I'm a changed man, I swear." Mario demands he takes him to see Garland. Bowser gulps and agrees to the proposition. Kevin, Lana, Simon, Pit, and Mega Man are tied up in chains in front of Tiamat when Garland appears through a red portal. "Which one to kill first, Garland?" Tiamat snarls. "It doesn't matter. They all die anyways," says Garland. He removes his left gauntlet, raising his hand up to the group. It's the exact same Triforce mark they have, but this time it glows with a deep blood red color. "Triforce of Wisdom?" Lana asks. "This is the manifestation of another god's will, the Triforce of Power." He lowers his hand. "And wisdom is nothing without power. This mark is proof that I am the avatar of the time god Chaos, and all of his powers are mine. We have control over all time in this world. You cannot stop us." "If you're an avatar of Chaos," Lana realizes, "then we're avatars. The god of light is different. It hasn't been awoken yet. there's nothing you can do with its powers. It doesn't matter anyways. He walks over to Kevin, then turns to Tiamat. I've changed my mind. You have the rest. I want to kill him first. Before Garland can swing his blade at Kevin, Pit yells, Zoom! Everyone flies to the ceiling, breaking out of their chains. The game masters fall to the ground, still in handcuffs. They need to run fast. What do we do? Kevin asks as the group flees. Tiamat in hot pursuit, flinging wind blasts at them. I think I have an idea. Follow me, Mega Man shouts. The game masters narrowly escape Tiamat and Garland, long enough for Mega Man to go back to the war mech. He touches it, absorbing its power. Mega Man has copied one of the most powerful machines to ever exist, and he can feel the energy running through his circuits. Mega Man easily breaks his chains, and he steers Tiamat down, ready to fight. In the Mega Man movie, Mega Man was anxious about his potential to become a weapon of mass destruction. This is where that plot point comes to a head. After absorbing the power of the war mech, Mega Man is more powerful than he could have possibly imagined, which will lead to a lot of character conflict in the future once it comes up against his pacifist nature. He fights Tiamat for a while. His power is very dangerous, and the Warriors of Light have to actively dodge his attacks. Eventually, after one especially huge energy blast, Mega Man is completely tapped out, and Tiamat drops to the ground, dead. The flying fortress falls from the sky as everything fades away in bright golden light. Once everyone wakes up from the cataclysm, they find the fortress has fallen into a castle, destroying it. More strikingly, their world isn't a wasteland anymore. The grass is green, the skies are clear or beautiful. Before any of the Warriors of Light can even think about what's happened, they're snatched by guards. Mega Man is the only one still unconscious, so the guards throw him away, assuming he's dead. The Warriors of Light are in a jail cell, completely at a loss as to what just happened. They figure that killing Tiamat must have reset this timeline. If Ganon had complete control over the century Lana was from, maybe Tiamat had control over this century. That's when Lana makes a realization. This castle, I've been here before. These are the ruins of a kingdom that used to exist in Hyrule. They don't look so ruined to me, says Simon. They all put together that they must be in a different time period. A voice from the shadows is heard. I don't know what Hyrule is, but you're in Cornelia, all right. You four pulled quite a stunt demolishing half the building like that. They look at the other person in the jail cell, an old woman in a red cape. Oh, that wasn't us, Simon says. It was a big spaceship piloted by a dragon. Ha! I like your stories, young ones, she says. I'm Matoya. You four are definitely getting executed. The king's been going quite mad. I'm his court magician, and suddenly he decides to lock me up. I swear, ever since Garland disappeared, he's been... Garland? Who's Garland? Lana asks. Why, he's the bravest knight in the land. I hear he started his own kingdom to the east. They're calling him Erdrick now, whatever that means. The Warriors of Light look at each other with shock. They've landed in Garland's time. On top of that, Erdrick is the name of the hero who founded Hyrule. Look, Pit says. I know this is hard, but we've managed to take out one of the four fiends. We can get out of this alive. I just wonder what happened to that robot guy, Simon says. Wonder about what happened to the robot guy. I didn't say Simon says. It's 1 a.m. and I'm tired. About an hour or so into their prison stay, the group starts chatting. Simon asks Pit if he's gonna become a full wizard now, and begs him to learn more than one spell so he doesn't end up like Eggplant Wizard. Kevin asks Lana about where she thinks their powers come from. Well, Hyrule has a legend that there are two gods, one of light and one of darkness. If one is ever to be woken up, the balance between good and evil will be changed forever. If Chaos is the god of darkness, then maybe something will come up. You kids have such an imagination, Matoya says. Well, anywho, guards are coming soon, so you better accept your fate to die an excruciatingly painful death. Just then, The guards arrive and grab everyone to lead them to be executed. Matoya is also taken, which she's grumpy about. "Everyone!" Kevin says as they're dragged off. "We can do this! We can get out of here, because I'm Captain N, and we're the Game Masters." Everyone laughs on their way to the gallows. The Warriors of Light are strung up, with Matoya at the side waiting her turn. Once the nooses are tightened, right before the floor can open below them, a red portal appears. Out steps Bowser, Mario, and Luigi. So I just got back to the script after taking a short break, and I realized how fucking funny this must be out of context. Mario and Luigi run over to beat up the guards and rescue the Warriors of Light. "Dad! Uncle Luigi!" Kevin hugs them both. "How'd you escape Garland? What's Bowser doing here?" "Long story," Mario says. "Why are you being executed?" "Long story," Kevin sighs. The Warriors of Light look around at the massive squad of guards surrounding them. "I hate to interrupt your moment," Simon says, "but are any of you good at making escapes?" "Never fear! You've got the King of the Koopas on your side!" Bowser roars. The big escape sequence. The group fends off the soldiers as Simon and Pit make a detour to find Mega Man. He's damaged but still alive, so they take him with them. After a big chase sequence, they find 2 horse-drawn carriages. Bowser tries to sneak away on one, but Matoya has already claimed it for herself. "You're a handsome young man," she says. "I think I'm gonna go start a new life with the dwarves. Care to join me, sugar?" Mario grabs Bowser with an "oh no you don't" and hoists him onto the other carriage. They make a speedy getaway from the castle guards. Matoya is not plot relevant anymore because her joke has officially run its course. "Well, Kevin, it's nice your family is alive," Lana speaks up. She grabs Bowser's claw and shows the rest of the group. There's a red triangle like Garland had. But have any idea what one of the 4 fiends is doing here? Good question. Kevin looks at Mario and Luigi. Hey! Where are we headed now?" Simon interrupts. He's on horseback, driving the carriage. His years of horseback riding lessons are finally paying off. "Hold on a minute," Lana says. She points her blade to Bowser's neck. "Answers. Now." Bowser scrambles to find an answer. Look, lady, I'm a changed man, changed turtle. I used to be a bad guy, now I'm a good guy, and I actually hate all this fiend stuff. Garland, super lame." Mario face palms. "Just shut up, I'll explain the situation." Mario and Luigi do just that as the carriage speeds through a plain. Kevin, in turn, explains what he and his new friends have been up to. Lana demands that Bowser show them where Garland is. Everyone is fed up with Bowser, and it's taking a lot of strength for Mario and Luigi to not immediately throw Bowser off the carriage. That's when Lana realizes something. "Simon!" she cries. "I know exactly where to go. Garland will be in Hyrule Castle. Just down this path here and we'll get there eventually." "I think Garland will be there?" Simon asks. "Garland can go to any time period he wants, but he's sticking here. There must be a reason." Mega Man suddenly wakes up. "Pit, you saved me. I'm sorry for what happened back there." "Don't apologize. You saved our lives, Mega Man. You killed Tiamat." "I know, but I was the one who got us all into the mess in the castle in the first place. I was scared of becoming this powerful for a while. I don't want to become something people fear." I don't know how to answer that, Mega Man," Pit says. "But I know that as long as your heart's in the right place, you can only do good in the world." "I hope you're right," he says. After a days of travel, everyone reaches Hyrule Castle. Half finished and empty, most of the castle is still being built, and there is a sizable town around it. The only completely finished part of the castle is one throne room right in the center. "You still sure the turtle's not going to betray us?" Simon asks Kevin. "I have holy water." "Look, I have a grudge against Mario and all," Bowser says, "but I hate Garland even more." "Super reassuring," Simon sighs. Everyone gathers around and prepares their plan to surround and attack the castle. Lana is nervous because the place seems empty, but it's all come to this, so there's no way she's gonna back down now. "So," she says, "wanna give us a speech, Captain N?" she asked Kevin. Like a rallying speech? Isn't that a little lame? You're friends with a cupid and a robot boy in blue underwear, Simon says. You were way past lame. Kevin smiles, looks at the group, and looks to the castle. Just a few months ago, a giant crab attacked me in math class, and I thought it was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. Little did I know it was only the beginning. Soon enough, I'm fighting astronomical odds to beat a magician who can manipulate time itself. I would be lying if I said this wasn't the most terrifying thing of my goddamn life. But this time, I'm not so unsure of myself. 'Cause I've got a princess, a robot, 2 monster hunters, a monster, and 2 fat Italian fucks I call family on my side. I've seen you all face dangers I never could have possibly imagined. And it makes the future feel a little bit less scary. I don't know what to call it anymore. The future, the past, the present. I just know that we're the only one who can stand up to Garland and tell him the future's not his for the taking. Let's beat the final boss and complete this campaign. Game Masters! Everyone cheers. I've always wanted to write a big speech like that. Now let's raid Hyrule Castle. The Game Master stormed the castle with vigor, only to find it empty aside from one man. They enter the throne room to see Garland, sitting atop his throne. His helmet is off, revealing long, jet black hair and a young face. Ah, you found me. Garland gets up and puts his helmet back on. Apologies for getting a little distracted. I'll kill you all right away. Aren't you at all concerned your greatest ally just betrayed you? Bowser asks. I gave you your power, I can take it away, Garland says. I'm gonna kill every last one of you. Garland, why? Why did you betray Hyrule like this? Lana screams. You want to talk about Hyrule? Garland gets up and walks over to Lana. Villain monologue time. I had a brother named Erdrick when I was young. A warrior of light, chosen by the gods just like you. He was a brave knight and inspired me to become a knight just like him. We were good at it. Soon enough, the demon forces were vanquished from Hyrule, but Erdrick lost his life in that battle. I got all the glory, and there was not one mention of his sacrifice from the royal family. What did being a hero do for him? So I seeked out new lands and I founded Hyrule, a great kingdom, built upon glory which would surpass Cornelia. I reigned until chaos showed me the futility in it all. Hyrule's future is nothing but death and war. Chaos offered me his power. Of course I rejected it at first, but I couldn't stop thinking about the fate that will befall my kingdom once I was gone. Once you've seen the world and the scale I've seen it, you understand the insignificance of time, of lives. My brother's sacrifice really did mean nothing. I might as well embrace the chaos. Garland, Lana says, you say we're weak and pathetic, but if you can't see the beauty in life, friendships, and rising above pain and suffering to become better people, I think you're the weak one. Foolishness. You forget yourself. I am the most powerful being in the world. Time is mine. Garland snaps his fingers, and a bunch of red portals appear. Demons appear from all over time periods of Hyrule's past. That includes members of Ganon's army like Darknuts and Zora, some of the kaiju from Mega Man, as well as some of the monster types we've seen in Kid Icarus and Castlevania. You forget yourself too, Garland. I'm the king of the Koopas, Bowser yells. A bunch of portals appear with enemies from Super Mario Bros. Goombas, Koopas, Sidesteppers, Lakitus, etc. How did you do that? Luigi asks. Why didn't you do that before? Bowser smiles. My secret? The battle is on. In a huge action sequence, the two armies clash. After a long while of fighting, Garland's demonic forces are starting to slip. With rage, Garland manipulates time, and eventually, he reaches the spot in time where Ganon and Link are having their duel. Ganon stops fighting Link to mow through a whole bunch of Bowser's minions. Simon and Pit take on the remainder of the demons, and Simon makes use of his holy water to kill a ton of them with ease. This stuff's real easy to get in Greece, he laughs. Lana finds Link, drained of energy, and is almost about to be defeated by Ganon. But he is overpowered, when Ganon is hit by a blast of fire. It's Mega Man, who is able to recover and uses the last of his strength to take out Ganon. Eventually, Garland is struck down by Kevin and Lana together. Lana pulls off his helmet. Despite his powerful magic, he's just as human as the rest of them. Garland falls over, exhausted. The monsters stop, and it looks like the Warriors of Light have won, until a force of some kind escapes Garland's corpse. It materializes into a huge yellow demon. This is Chaos in its purest form. He's about to destroy everything in the world. The ultimate evil has just been unleashed. The group attempts to fight, but it's worthless. Most of Bowser's forces are gone. It turns out it was mostly an illusion. Bowser learned magic on his own to try and get his army back. Time swirls around the Warriors of Light as Chaos moves to a higher plane of existence. Before all hope can be lost, Kevin raises his hand as the Triforce of Wisdom starts to glow. All the other warriors do the same. In a flash of light, everyone is transported back to New York City. "Are you insane?" Mario screams, as Chaos flies through the city, destroying buildings. "It's okay, Dad," Kevin says. "We just have to hold it off for a little bit." So, for the rest of the exciting climax, the Game Masters just have to hold off Chaos and defend the city from his attacks. It's a long, dangerous fight with a lot of collateral damage, but everyone contributes. Even Roll, Dr. Light, Pauline, and Toad show up to save people from Chaos. Eventually, Chaos gets weaker and weaker. Chaos's power was bound to the other world, and in this one he's powerless. The warriors follow him up to a rooftop. That was the same spot Kevin first defeated Bowser. Chaos is about to fire a laser into the building. It looks like all hope will be lost for the Warriors of Light. Simon, in a last-ditch effort, throws his last vial of holy water at Chaos. It doesn't defeat him, but holds him off long enough so that he starts to disintegrate. "I think we just saved the world!" exclaims Kevin. Everyone jumps around, hugs each other, and celebrates. Chaos has been banished. A crowd forms once again to celebrate the heroes of New York City. But Mario and Luigi refuse to be celebrated. The real heroes, Mario says, are Kevin, Lana, Mega Man, Simon Belmont, and whatever the other one was named. Bowser tries to escape, but Mario pulls him back in, so he is forced to participate in the party. A few hours later, Kevin and his family are at a shelter, while the process of rebuilding New York City has already started. The other Warriors of Light are there, deciding what to do now that Chaos has been banished. Simon decides he needs to travel the world to figure himself out. He's been sheltered most of his life. Now he needs a change. Pit wants to go back to Paleopolis to discover just what his connection to the Leffanes are, so the two are separated for now. Mega Man meets back up with Light and Roll and isn't sure what to do next. Are there even gonna be any more monster attacks now that Chaos is gone? Light assures him that he's still young and has time to decide for himself. More importantly, he has friends to rely on. Lana will go back to Hyrule. She has a lot to rebuild, and her parents are still waiting for her. Lana promises Kevin she'll visit often, and Kevin says he'd love to visit Hyrule under more favorable circumstances. "So, what do we do with Bowser?" Luigi asks. Pauline steps in. "The Mushroom Kingdom will handle him." Bowser gulps. Everyone says goodbye and heads off in their own direction. It was a long and hard journey, but deep down, everyone knows they'll see each other again. Nobody knows what the future will entail for the Game Masters, but they're ready to face it together. The end. Captain N the Final Fantasy is the only concept I made here that I'm genuinely worried might be too long if I made it to an actual script. This is a huge crossover movie which was both somewhat easy because I set it up so much, and very hard because of how many characters and plotlines there were to juggle. I'll admit some characters like Mega Man and Pit were harder to give roles to than others, but I tried. I'm proud of what I wrote, and I hope the way they all come together as a family landed well. I honestly did not expect that all of the four fiends would be making appearances in this movie. Bowser and Ganon just kinda snuck their way in, and I am glad for it because of the ways the fiends can parallel the Warriors of Light. I tried to make this crossover feel conclusive enough, but there's still a lot of plot threads left unanswered for future movies. I hope you enjoyed my stupid Captain N fanfiction. That's about all I want to say for now, so let's get to the mid and post-credit scenes. We're inside a boxing ring. A packed audience is here to watch a match between two of the greatest boxers in the world, Bald Bull and King Hippo. Bald Bull is on the ropes while King Hippo is barely breaking a sweat. Despite his athleticism, King Hippo is a fat man who is completely bald, wearing a silver crown on his head. I didn't know you could wear that in boxing. Bald Bull punches King Hippo in the gut, to no effect, which, okay, now that I think of it, that's the opposite of Punch-Out. King Hippo knocks him out with one punch. After the match, King Hippo sits in his locker room, bored out of his mind. A familiar cloaked magician walks in. "Who are you?" The stranger removes his hood, revealing an eggplant where his head should be. "King Hippo, you're quite the accomplished boxer. Don't you want something more in life than some stuffy locker room? Come with me." Despite Garland being the main antagonist of Captain N the Final Fantasy, Garland does not actually appear in the Captain N TV show. The main villains were the iconic team-up of Mother Brain from Metroid, King Hippo from Punch-Out, and Eggplant Wizard from Kid Icarus. Now that King Hippo and Eggplant Wizard are seemingly teaming up, who knows what forces the Warriors of Light will have to face in the future. I can give you the post-credit scene though. We open on a desolate, rocky, orange planet in space. A big gray ship with the label Galactic Federation towers over a small village. There's one man in this village who's still alive and he's begging for help. "Please! The Metroids! They've killed us all. They got me, they bit me. I need help." We pan over to see who he's talking to. A mechanical orange suit with a cannon on its arm. The mysterious stranger from the Galactic Federation shoots him in the head with a ball of plasma, killing him instantly. "Sorry, but if they got to you, you're already dead." This is bounty hunter Samus Aran. Metroid is probably the biggest omission so far in the Captain NCU. Mother Brain was the antagonist of the Captain N show, and Samus was a main protagonist in the Captain N comic book series. So, once the Captain NCU starts to lean more and more into sci-fi, what better series to adapt than Metroid? So, there we go. Phase 1 of the Captain NCU. I know these videos aren't doing super well or anything, but I appreciate anyone watching my crazy ideas, and I do fully plan on making more Captain NCU content. This is some of the most fun I've had planning and making videos in a while. I'd love to hear thoughts on how I did the stories, or ways you'd adapt each game. If you're still watching, I'm not quite done yet. I already have plans for my Phase 2. Comic-Con has come early this year. The lineup for Phase 2 of the Captain NCU will consist of 8 movies, and is as follows. Super Mario Land. I previously had a rule that only NES content is allowed for the Captain NCU, but I'm gonna lift it a little to allow content from Game Boy games made before or during 1991. Super Mario Land will follow Kevin and the Mario Bros. As Pauline finally takes on the responsibility of becoming princess of the Mushroom Kingdom. Metroid. The Captain NCU will take a hard veer to sci-fi with this one. Metroid will also be the introduction to Samus Aran, who might play a big role in the future. Mega Man 2. Once Mega Man 2 is unveiled at the Comic-Con panel, we will make a big show of the fact that Proto Man is in it, probably get the actor who plays him on stage or something. Proto Man's a big deal, he's in this one. Okay, now next is the funny one. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, a Captain N Halloween special. This is going to be an adaptation of the famously bad NES game Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I'm not talking about the book, oh no. We have access to the full NES library, we're going to be making use of the full NES library. I had to play an hour of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde to get gameplay footage for this. Next is Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. This is not Simon's Quest, so we're not getting two AVGN games, famous AVGN games in a row. So most of the movies from the last phase will be getting sequels, and Castlevania is no different. This is also one named after a Game Boy game, which should be interesting. I will say now, Kid Icarus is the only movie that doesn't get a sequel in Phase 2. Not literally everything can get their own respective sequel, because I want to make way for more interesting new things. Sorry for Pit fans. I do have some plans for him, don't worry. The Legend of Zelda, Quest of the Avatar. You might have noticed that subtitle comes from Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar. Yes, you're right. Good knowledge of the NES library. You're so smart. Not a lot of people know about the massive influence Ultima has had on RPGs, and of its various Nintendo ports. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. Although, fun fact, Ultima 4 was the first game to use the word avatar in a video game context. Mother. I've already loosened my rules to allow Game Boy content before or during 1991. I'm allowing Famicom content before that time as well. This is Mother, based on the first game in the Mother/Earthbound series. People are going to be very confused about this game, and there's going to be articles called like, why is the Captain NCU adapting obscure RPG from famous Japanese guy? I wonder what Shigesato Itoi will be known for if he doesn't make Mother. I wanted at least one movie that can be a little more self-contained, where the protagonists probably aren't going to meet the Warriors of Light. It also might be an animated movie. It depends on how I actually feel about it when I make the video. There will be connections between Mother and the rest of the Captain NCU though, of course. Mother will be a period piece, and it should be interesting to not have any content from Earthbound or Mother 3 in an adaptation. Captain N 2. Phase 2 will end with my sequel to Captain N the Final Fantasy. It won't actually be called Captain N 2, but I can't think of a better title yet. In addition to that, there's also one more movie which might be a part of Phase 1 or Phase 2, depending on how it goes. It will be a guest pitch. Ooh. I won't say anything besides that. I look forward to making more Captain NCU content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.